Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of what if Deku was raised by Mirko instead of All Might? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Rumi doesn't like to stick to one place. Some might chalk it up to having a prey animal's restlessness, but that's a load of bull because she's not a prey animal. Rabbits are very badass, thank you very much, and this one will gladly give you a kick in the head and then chow down on a hunk of beef after work. But regardless, she doesn't like staying put. Her first job, if you could call it that, because walking around with a license but no contract doesn't really count, at least to the government, was up in Sapporo. Then she moved south, all the way to Matsuyama. But that quickly got too crowded with weaker heroes, so she moved to Osaka. Gran Orca drove her out after she stepped a bit too far, so she relocated to Tokyo. Only to be outshined by All Might, which she really should have considered before making the move. As confident in herself as she may be, she knows fully well that no one can beat All Might. Which brings her here, Mizudafu, an offshoot of Tokyo close enough to schedule talks with commission reps but far enough from the big guy to carve out her own spot. She'll probably move within a year or so, though, just for a change of scenery. Help over here. One of her ears twitches to the direction the sound came from, and Rumi instantly tenses up, ready to spring. Rustling and a yell of frustration spur her into action, and she jumps high. It takes less than a minute for her to cover a distance of 5 blocks and a fraction of that time for her to kick the perp brandishing his quirk at a random desk jockey. She holds the villain down with her feet and looks the civilian over. "You good?" she asks, though it's really only a courtesy. The man looks fine, if a little rough around the edges. "You're Mirko," the man yells instead of answering. Rumi holds in a sigh because it's probably going to be one of those conversations. Nice catch, Captain Obvious. One upside to her public persona is that she gets to be an a-hole most of the time. But even that's a small comfort when she has to deal with drooling fans left and right. "My son loves you," the man says, ignoring her comment. "Oh, I'm sure he does," Rumi thinks but doesn't say out loud. That's another downside to her career. The sexualization of heroes is a right beach when it's you in the spandex, that's for sure. "Can I have a picture? Or at least an autograph?" "Fine, but make it snappy." The man wastes no time rushing up and holding up his phone to take a selfie. Part of the villain ends up in the shot and Rumi even strikes a pose because that's what her PR consultant says she should do. The man walks away soon after and Rumi is left to wait with the villain until the police arrive. When they do, they don't even ask to see her license and take the villain quickly so she can head back on patrol. The rest of the day passes by pretty quickly. Mizudafu isn't a hotbed of crime like Hosu is. It's one of the reasons why she doesn't plan on staying for too long, but there's enough action to pass the time. Some girl with a gigantification quirk makes her debut across town while Rumi stops a robbery. She's only a little miffed about being cut from the news for the other heroine, but she brushes it aside because she knows how important debuts are. She still wishes she could have given the big villain a kicking, though. A fight like that would be intense, dangerous, and most importantly, fun. Around the time school lets out, Rumi heads away from where the school buildings are. Kids mean autographs, and autographs slow down patrols enough when there's only 1 or 2, but the 100 buildings worth of kids would ask for would keep her away from any crime in the area. The shattering of glass, cries of panic, and the clink of coins hitting the ground a few blocks over. Yet another robbery is in progress. Like before, Rumi jumps high and uses the buildings to cut across busy streets. Her ears swivel around wildly, pinpointing the location of the criminal. She finds them, the mass of ugly green slime tearing down a road with a cash register inside of it. She hits the ground right in front of them, shielding a frail, skeleton-like man behind her. "Get to safety," she orders. "I've got this." She doesn't look behind her, but she hears him hurry across the street. Focusing forward, Rumi raises her fists. The slime villain doesn't even slow its charge, but that will work in her favor. When the green goop is right about to slam into her, Rumi leaps and brings her left heel down on the floating jaws of the person. They cry out in pain and drop the register, but the slime blocks another hit from landing. With a wholly unnecessary backflip, Rumi makes some breathing room. Liquid opponents are tough for a fighter like her, but this one clearly has eyes and teeth for weak points, so it should be simple enough for her to show off a little. Come, ere you slippery bastard. Rumi taunts. If you don't, I'll make sure they have to scrape you off the pavement. The villain gurgles something profanity-laced and charges again, spreading out its mass in an obvious attempt to capture her. Rumi dives to the side easily and lunges back in to knee the villain in the back of the eye. There's another grunt of pain, and the villain becomes more desperate. Their body starts to break off into more puddles, and Rumi suddenly has to focus on more and more angles. She ducks under a wave of green and kicks aside another. Half of the liquid gathers to rush at her in a 10-foot wave, but she jumps over it. The fight continues, Rumi trying to create an opening to nail the villain in the eye and the villain trying to make their escape. A crowd starts to gather, which would usually be a great thing, but it's only another detail to focus on alongside all the parts of the villain. It's why she doesn't notice that a part of them slid into a nearby manhole until it's too late. By the time she sees it, half of the villain is already in the sewer. Swearing, she runs to the manhole, pulls the cover off, and dives inside. The stench makes her scrunch her nose and the disgusting water sticks to her legs, but she focuses on her surroundings. It's dark and her eyes are slow to adjust, but her ears are perfect for this. The sound of sloshing water sends her to the left, but she also makes some noise, which spurs the villain on. After 10 seconds of being chased, the villain bursts out of another manhole and Rumi follows. They're under a bridge now, and the villain is slow to adapt to the change in field. Rumi is not. She rams her shoulder into the mouth of the villain and grabs the eyes with her bare hands. Repositioning, she pins the solid bits to the floor with her feet and holds one eye in her hands. If you make a move, I will write you a prescription for dentures. Don't resist and we won't have a problem. Do I make myself clear? The villain groans, but none of the slime moves. Rumi allows herself to look around, relishing in her victory. Oh my God, you're Mirko. Rumi sighs and tenses her muscles, forcing down the curse that wants to come out of her lips. She turns her head, which causes her hair to stick to her torso, which would normally be fine, but she's covered in sewer water and slime right now, so it's pretty gross to see a scrawny elementary schooler. Yeah, I am. Can you call the cops? I need transport for this sheet stain and I can't exactly dial. Sure. The kid says, dropping their charred school notebook and pulling a smartphone from their pocket. They tap on it a few times and quickly talk into the mic. Then he hangs up and looks at Rumi like she's a goddess. Can I have your autograph? Rumi raises an eyebrow. My hands are full, kid. Unless you want to hold this eyeball, you ain't getting one. I can do that. And the kid actually does, because he's apparently some kind of hero fanatic. Rumi sees his sketches of other pros as she looks for a blank page to sign, and takes up a whole page with her hero name upon his request. Then she takes the eyeball back and hands him his book. The cops will be here soon, so scram, Rumi suggests. What are you, 10? You shouldn't be out here this late in the first place. I'm 14, the kid yells. And school got out like a half hour ago. Yeah, and carrots give you good eyesight. But they do, the kid says. Rumi glares at him. Or they don't. They totally don't. But I really am a teenager. You got some kind of mutant quirk then? 'Cause teenagers shouldn't look like walking noodles. The kid almost looks malnourished if she's honest about it. His neck and wrists are painfully thin, and his uniform hangs off of his body. Not to mention his awful red shoes that look impossible to run in. And no, that's actually what I want to ask you about. The kid looks down and fiddles with his notebook and pen. I was hoping to ask All Might this, but can someone quirkless be a hero like you? He looks up at Rumi, tears in his eyes and desperation on his face. It's completely different from how he was before, but Rumi doesn't let it get to her. How often do you work out? She asks. I never. You been hitting the books? Yes. Do you know how to throw a punch? No. How many hours do you spend training a day? 0.0. Then no. You can't be a hero like me. Or anyone else worth their salt, really. What? The kid says. He flinches back like he's been hit and drops his notebook. You heard me, Rumi reiterates. Look in the mirror, kid. When I was your age, I was fighting adults twice my size, lifting daily, and running 140 kilometers a week. You're made of noodles and doodle in your notebook about how CC Mount Lady is. The kid colores scarlet but doesn't reply. Sketches and daydreams won't make up for laziness. So unless you're willing to do a 180, pick a dream where you can do just that to get to it. Dream. The kid leaves and a few minutes later the cops show up. They take the villain off of her hands and Rumi goes home. She showers, eats, and relaxes on the couch until she falls asleep. She never once suspects that the conversation she had with that green-haired kid was the start of something much bigger. It's taken Izuku 10 years to realize that he's an idiot. It's an astonishing thing, and the more he thinks about it, the more he wants to scream at his past like 2 hours ago self. The notebook in his lap laughs at him as he looks at the notes and admires the sketches he spent so long on. You wasted your time on me, and now your shot is gone. Go on, cry about it. That's the only thing you're good at, anyways, it says. And Izuku can't disagree with the statement. But Izuku doesn't cry. He forces himself not to. He squeezes his eyes shut and breathes steadily, in and out over and over again. He tosses the notebook on his dresser, the fruit of his useless labors sliding across the polished wood and falling into the crack between the wall and the back of the dresser. Dully, he realizes that it might come in handy later, but it feels so good to throw that old part of himself away, so he doesn't get up to grab it. Laying back in bed, he looks at his posters. All Might smiles down on him, rippling with muscle and oozing confidence. To think he'd had pictures of him in his room since he was 3 and never once thought that it would be a good idea to bulk up. God, he really was an idiot. He sits back up in bed and stands. There's burns on his uniform from Kakin, but they'll wash out, they always do. He shrugs off the outer coat and untucks the button down under it. He pulls it and the white tee under that off in one motion. He looks down at his arms, his chest, and his stomach, all pale and lacking any definition. He looks at the All Might poster. He grabs a pen and marches over to the 18-month calendar on the wall and flips to see the February page. He writes slowly and deliberately so the characters will come out neat and tidy. Then he gets on the floor, back up with his hands holding him up from wood. He does a push-up so bad even he knows that it's a joke. But he gets back up and tries again. The night goes on like that, with his only break being dinner. But Izuku keeps trying, pushing through even as his arms shake and scream in pain. Mirko called him lazy. Well, he'll show her lazy. You want me to haul trash? Me, a seasoned pro with an average of 15 saves a day. Taking trash from the local dumping ground, which is the beach for some reason, to the proper place for trash. Well, you'll be putting it in dumpsters which will be taken away by garbage men, but in a sense, yes. Yeah, you can shove that idea right up your butt. Mirko, her PR consultant, which is a nice way of saying handler who's woefully underpaid, sighs. Your marketability needs work. You have the skills of a top pro along with the looks and style, but your personality is fine the way it is. Thank you, Rumi interrupts. I don't need to change myself to get my rank up. Endeavor is number 2 and he has the personality equivalent of a flaming sack of sheet. Endeavor has created the perfect persona for his position. Her consultant disagrees. His cold exterior and brash stubbornness are an excellent contrast to All Might, which makes him popular with people who prefer someone more serious than the symbol. He is the perfect combination of awe-inspiring and relatable. But you don't tolerate any kind of help, even from sidekicks, which takes away from your popularity. You have a superiority complex which is warranted, but it grates against your small traces of humility. To put it simply, if you don't do something to make you more likable, you won't crack the top 5. And hauling trash is going to fix all of that? Rumi leans back in her chair and puts her feet up on the desk. It'll make you seem more down to earth, he explains. Community service is a good way to build up brownie points, and will give people one less reason to not like you. There's no way in hell that I'm going to spend my time picking up garbage. But the next day she's doing exactly that. Well, not quite. A cameraman and her PR guy follow her as she walks the length of Dagoba Beach, their footsteps marking where they've been, and the sun beating down overhead. It would be a nice summer's day if she wasn't about to pick up filth. "Here's good," the cameraman says, pointing to an old truck that's covered with old tires and paint cans. "If she could lift it up a little, I could get a great action shot. And then maybe we can do one of her sitting on that barrel over there like she's resting." "Yeah, that's fine," her PR guy agrees. "I'm right here, you know," Rumi says, impatiently tapping her foot. "And I want this photo op BS done quick so I can actually get to work." Yes, just lift the truck and we'll be out of your hair soon." They're not out of her hair soon. In fact, they take pictures for 2 whole hours, long enough from its position high in the sky to being obscured by the piles of trash. Of the million photos taken, Rumi doesn't see one. Not that she wants to, in fact she could care less about how she looks, but she does care about breaking the top 5, and it would at least be nice to see what's going to make that happen. When the 2 men leave, Rumi instantly takes out her frustration on an unsuspecting school bus. Crumpling the metal also has the benefit of making it easier to move when the time comes, which won't be for a while considering that there's an estimated 100 square kilometers of trash on the beach. And that wasn't even factoring how high the piles are. Rumi really has her work cut out for her, but that's all the more reason to get to work. She first makes sure that there's no one on the beach. It takes a while, but eventually she feels like it's safe enough to knock over the biggest pile of trash with a perfectly placed kick. It falls with a massive roar of colliding metal and rubber, kicking up sand as it hits the ground. Rumi moves on to the next pile, and the next after that. Most fall with a single kick, but a few require a more delicate touch. By the time her watch beeps, the beach is level. There's no more clearings, but there's also no more towers waiting for a strong gust of wind to be blown over onto whoever's below. It's 4 o'clock, and she knows she should be heading back. She'll stop by tomorrow morning and haul a chunk away before work. The place isn't going to change overnight. But something makes her linger. It's a choice that changes her life for good. "See, I've got this." Rumi's ears swivel to the left, catching someone or something trying to move a heavy object. Said person or thing sounds like a teen boy. Sighing, she starts to make her way over to where the sound came from. It's probably some idiot kid trying to pry something shiny out of a pile of garbage. She'll scare the fucker and tell them not to trespass on her beach. When she reaches the source of the noise, which is at the very edge of the beach where the only clean spot is, she finds the last thing she expected. A kid doing deadlifts with a rusted barbell that has buckets of rocks for weights on the sand. Or at least, she thinks he's trying to do deadlifts. His form is god-awful, and checks every box on the how to hurt yourself while lifting list. Arch back? Slumped shoulders? Legs spread too far apart? He's practically doing the splits. Rumi can't help but want to end the sin against weightlifting that stands before her. "What the F are you doing?" she shouts, startling the kid into dripping the bar and falling on his butt. He scampers away as Rumi approaches, but stops when he sees her face. "Mirko? You sure as hell ain't doing me, kid." She kicks his shitty rig to the side. "I'm here to exercise," the kid cries. "I can't work all my muscles doing bodyweight stuff at home, and we can't afford a gym membership." I figured that. Someone probably threw out some weights. "No, you idiot, what the F was that exercise you were doing?" The kid blinks, surprised. "Deadlifts? They're good for your lower back, core, and legs, right?" "Not like that, they're not." Rumi marches over to where the kid's bar landed and grabs it. "Get over here," she orders. The kid obeys, and they stand across from each other, the bar between them. "This," she says, bending over and grabbing the bar, "is how you deadlift. Back straight, feet shoulder width apart, shoulders square. You raise your back until you feel the weight and then you push upwards with your hips. See?" She does a couple of reps, going slow so the kid can get a good look. "And don't do 'em on sand. Put a board down or something." "Thank you," the kid says, bowing. "Why did you help me?" "Because I'm going to be here a while, and if I have some idiot kid slipping a disc because he can't deadlift right down the beach, I'm going to get real mad." The kid looks at her for a while, thinking. "If that's the case, can you teach me how to squat and bench press?" Rumi sighs, knowing that if she doesn't, he'll F it up. "Fine." An hour later, and the kid is exhausted. It's obvious that he's never done a lick of exercise in his life, but he's trying to get in shape so Rumi can't really judge. But it's almost funny to watch him gasp and wheeze as he tries to do a proper box jump. "You look familiar," Rumi says, looking down at the kid as he lays face down on the sand. "Have I threatened you before?" "I met you last week," the kid gasps. He rolls over to look at the sky. "You told me I couldn't be a hero because I was lazy." "You're the Quirkless perv," Rumi remembers. "I am not a perv," the kid defends. Yeah, whatever. Why do you even want to be a hero, anyways? There's lots of jobs you could get. I wanted to be like All Might. Just really cool and popular, you know?" Rumi does know, but she doesn't say anything. But now, the kid tilts his head to look at her, and for the first time, Rumi sees how fired up those green eyes of his can really get. "Now I want to show people that I'm worth something. I don't want to be a weak, quirkless waste of space. I want to be strong. I want to be awesome. I want to prove everyone who told me that I can't do it wrong." Rumi thinks for a while. "What's your name, kid?" "Midoriya. Midoriya Izuku. 1 is easy. 2 is easy. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all easy. 10 is a little difficult, as are 11 through 15. 16 is where it starts to hurt. 17 feels like he tried to lift 100 kilos the rep before. 18 makes his legs shake. 19 almost makes him quit. And 20? Oh, come on. That's nothing, you've got like 5 left in you. Push, you pencil-necked wannabe. Push." Izuku pushes, crying out in effort and pain as he stands up. It's slow going, and if he wasn't completely focused on getting the weight up, he would have time to count to 10 and back. Down to 0 before he's standing straight. The moment he completes the set, he throws the bar down. It hits the board under his feet and rolls backwards onto the sand below. Izuku falls to his knees, thighs feeling like jelly. "Cool, now do those core exercises I told you about and then start running." Izuku looks over at his SLV driver because no one who makes people do that much without rest is a mentor like she's insane. After that, "I can't feel my legs." Mirko shrugs. SCKS to SCK. "Remember, you wanted this, and even asked me to make sure you didn't half but everything." "I can't feel half my butt right now," Izuku mumbles. "What was that?" "Nothing." Izuku shouts. "I'll do the core stuff and run. Just no more squats, please." Why did I have to do so many of them? Muscular endurance. Mirko walks over to him and forces him to stand up. "You're not looking to get a monster 1 rep max. If you were, you'd be doing more weight with less reps and more rest. You ever seen old school strongmen?" No. They were fucking massive. 2 meters, 200 kilos, and lifting half that over their heads. Now, most of them were good athletes, but they were built for power. They'd go for a few hours lifting heavy with tons of breaks. Mirko roughly pokes him in the chest. "But you don't want that." "I don't." "Hell no. Most couldn't run the 1200 in under 12 minutes, and even that would kill them." "Then what do I want?" Izuku asks. "Endurance, duh." She knocks him on the head, gentle enough that it doesn't hurt, but with his weak legs, it nearly sends him sprawling. "You have seen marathon runners, right? In school books at least." Izuku nods. "They're skinny, right? And tall." "Tall people are overrated," Mirko says, waving that off. "People yammer on about longer stride length and bigger lung capacity, but what really matters is how you're built. Doesn't your body type depend on your height?" "Shut," Mirko orders. Marathon runners train to run for a long butt time. The best ever recorded was by some African guy at just under 2 hours, but the majority of runners were going at it for over 4 hours. "That's a long time to be running," Izuku says dubiously. "You bet your butt it is," Mirko agrees, and they could only do it because they trained their muscles to be able to keep going for that long. It's the same principle here. "But I'm not running a marathon," Izuku points out. "And All Might is built like an old strongman. Or maybe a bodybuilder. Either way, he's still big. Aren't muscles good whether they're built for power or endurance?" "You ain't All Might, kid," Mirko says. "No one but he himself is. There are other big heroes too, though. Endeavor, Death Arms, Fat Gum, Tiger from the PP Cats. They have quirks, you don't, Mirko interrupts. Izuku winces, but she doesn't say anything gentler. They're built like brick houses because their quirks are meant for that stuff. Or in Tiger and Endeavor's cases, their quirks make up for their bulky frames. Endeavor can literally fly, and I've seen Tiger dodge attacks faster than people can see with that contortionist bullshit he does. You can't do that, and you never will be able to do that. Izuku looks down at his hands, which are red and raw from holding the bar. He looks up at Mirko, or more specifically, her muscles. Every bit of her is like a coiled spring, taut and ready to burst. She's light and compact, perfect for dodging and quick maneuvering. And her small stature makes her a smaller target in general. I understand, he says. Good. Now get to fucking running. I've got shit to clean and the last thing I have time for is babysitting. Core, which is just a fancy way of saying abs and upper legs. Izuku thought it would just be sit-ups. But as it turns out, core is one of the most important body parts when it comes to being fit and athletic. So instead of just sit-ups, Izuku does leg raises, flutter kicks, in and outs, chair sit-ups, which can drop off the face of the earth for all he cares because they are awful, and side bends. After all of that, he has one left. Normally it wouldn't be bad, but every part of him feels like it's on fire, and he falls 5 times just trying to hold the position. And there's still more to be done after that. Running SCKS. Izuku thought he would be better at it, just because he has a habit of running to school and back every day, but he was wrong. The sand gives out under his feet, forcing him to push harder than usual. His legs are tired from all of the squats, deadlifts, kettlebell swings, calf raises, and lunges, which makes it really hard to move at all, let alone quickly. And to top it all off, Mirko suggested a nifty little thing called interval training. It goes like this. Izuku jogs for 30 seconds. Then, when his phone beeps, he sprints as fast as he can for another 30. Once that's up, he goes back to jogging. After every jogging PRD, he knocks 5 seconds off the cycle. So he might start jogging for 30 and sprinting for 30, but he ends up jogging for 5 and sprinting for 5. Exercise. Izuku decides once he gets home and collapses on his bed. He smells bad, his clothes are soaked with sweat, and he can't feel anything. Well, anything other than exhaustion. His mother looks at him like he's insane when he tells her what he did, and that he did it willingly, but she smiles and makes him a big dinner because she's a good mother like that. Izuku thinks exercise is, until he wakes up in the morning and sees rolls on his stomach. He pokes them and they give way easily, but then he flexes. They become slightly more defined, and are more resistant to force. Calmly, he Googled, is it normal to get abs after 1 week of working out? The answer is no, but there's one account from a person who was really skinny and got them after 1 day of doing intense exercise because they had such a small body fat percentage. Izuku relaxes back into his bed. Good, he thinks. He's not a freak of nature. Or maybe he is, being quirkless and all. But that's not so bad anymore. Mirko believes in him, even if she'd never say it outright, and laughs every time he fails. But she's never once said he wasn't as good as other people because he doesn't have a quirk, and she only doubted him because he was an idiot. It's much better than the kids and teachers at school, Mom, and Kaken's been himself lately. The insults mid-class haven't gotten any better or worse, and he's still his loud, brash self. And, of course, he doesn't have an ounce of belief that he can do it. It's tiring to deal with, but Izuku can live. It could be much worse after all. He could still be thinking that he can make it with just his notes. He's on the right track now, and that's good enough for him. He falls asleep easily once his head hits the pillow. But then his mom wakes him up and tells him to shower, so he doesn't get any real rest until 10 at night. Then he wakes up at 6:30 for school and gets ready. His muscles are sore, and he finds himself slowing down. The thought of dealing with everyone at school again isn't appealing at all. But then he remembers that there's a workout waiting for him after, one that produces results and is near someone who, well, doesn't believe in him, but at least thinks he's worth something. He's out the door 10 minutes later, ready for another day. Thank you. That's a funny way of crying out in pain. Really, doing that many push-ups when your arms are shaking is dumb. You could have tapped out at 10. But you said 2 sets of 20. As a goal. Just because I can squat 1,000 kilos doesn't mean I do it daily. You have a quirk, I don't. I have to make up for that. Yeah, but that ain't gonna happen if you keep killing yourself with exercise every day. I'll rest tomorrow. Do whatever, just as long as I don't have to carry you to the F&G hospital. You called me scrawny though. Wouldn't that make carrying me easy? It's the principle of the matter, Adamus. I carry one teenager and then suddenly I'm a taxi service. That's a slippery slope fallacy, which is a sign that you can't come up with a better argument. You think I give a shit? No. Good. Why are you even helping me? I'm not. I yell at you and encourage you to follow my workout routine. It's not the same thing. I think it is. Yeah, well, you're an idiot. You're still helping me even if you don't think you are. If you didn't scream at me every time I was about to give up, I wouldn't be making progress. And the exercise I've been doing is really well thought out. I looked, and there isn't a better one out there for what I'm looking to be. I was like you. What? Hold your horses. I didn't walk around thinking I could make it without any effort or doodle in my notebook about CC heroes. That was one drawing, and was about her marketability. Sure it was. Either way, I wasn't like that. I was like you now, desperate to prove myself to those around me and make it on my own. Do you know what it's like growing up as a literal bunny girl? I can imagine. Don't that fucking itty. Everyone treated me like I was this meek, shy, weak-willed little girl, even when I was a teenager. I got sick of it, and because of that I got angry. I yelled, I swore, I lashed out, but I was weak. I couldn't throw a punch, I was tiny, and I was dumb. The kids at school thought I was trying to do that stupid Sudara sheet you see in them old reruns. They laughed and called me cute, and I wanted to get back at them for it. So I started working out and learning to fight. All of it was self-taught, and I did it wrong. My progress was slow, and I injured myself a lot. Hell, my ankles are still weak from all the shit I put them through. But I made it. Got my license and debuted at 19 fighting a giant. I kind of remember that. I think I saw it on the news when I was 6 or 7. It was really impressive. Yeah, and it made people take me seriously. It made them respect me. It made them think of me as better than them. I've even had a few people from my old middle and high schools apologize to me and admit that they were wrong. Which is just what I wanted. So you're helping me because you think I can do the same? It's been less than a week since you've started taking sheet seriously. For all I know you could give up tomorrow or the next day, because you haven't even proved yourself to me yet. Ouch. The truth hurts. Anyone can go for a week, but a month? A year? That takes mental strength. You've got to keep going even when your progress starts to slow. Take more than 2 steps from the starting line, and maybe then I consider what I'm doing to be help. Then what are you doing? Because it counts for something. I'm being to you what I wished someone was to me. I wish I had someone yelling down my neck from day one. It would have been a lot better for my growth. I wish someone would have given me a shot to work to prove myself. But I didn't get that. Thank you. Don't thank me. Pick your butt up and keep going, and then thank yourself for having the ball to try to make it pro without a quirk. Izuku gets off the train and walks with his head down over to the nearest sidewalk. He moves around most of the people walking, and does his best to be as unnoticeable as possible. But at the same time, he's looking at his phone, trying to figure out where his destination is. He hangs a right around the first corner he passes and walks a few more blocks. Then he takes a left and stops in front of a low, cinder block building. The door is down a set of narrow stairs, and there's a broken heater just beside the stairwell. The brick hasn't been washed in decades, and the windows are boarded up. But the sign says that it's open, and the sound of loud rock music permeates through the walls. Izuku takes a few unsure steps forward. Mirko had told him to find the seediest place for this sort of thing. She said that it was like getting good food. The business that looks super dirty and cheap but is still in business after a few years is something special. She also mentioned that it's a bonus if the workers rarely speak Japanese and have immigrated somewhat recently, but that doesn't really apply here. But the rest does. So Izuku walks down the stairs and grabs the handle. It's sticky. He pulls on it anyway, cringing as the bottom of the door scrapes against the cement below. A bell rings as he steps inside before it falls off the top of the door and clatters to the floor. Izuku winces, because looking inside, he can see that everyone in there is looking at him. Is this a boxing gym? He asks, voice cracking. The fighters inside laugh a little but go back to their activities. People spar on mats, punch bags, and lift weights. Izuku realizes that he asked a stupid question. Why do you want to know? A big, beefy man asks as he approaches Izuku. He's completely topless, and on the left side of his chest where a name tag would be on a clerk, he has a tattoo of the word Bart. I want to learn how to fight, Izuku says, taking a half step back. His heel kicks the fallen bell. The man raises an eyebrow. Why? Izuku swallows and prepares his answer. Mirko gave it to him, and he doubted that it would work at first, but in a place as hardcore looking as this? Because I don't want to be a beach anymore. The whole gym seems to still, and the only sound is the guitar solo of the song playing from the speakers scattered around the room. Oh, hell yeah. Don't we all? You sure as hell came to the right place for that, little man. That's enough of that. Bart? Is his name Bart? The tattoo would suggest so, but he doesn't want to assume, says. Go back to your sheet and let me talk to the kid in peace. Izuku watches as the gym goers resume their previous activities. One man racks what must be 300 kilos of weights in preparation to squat. Another slips their boxing gloves on. A few more do arm curls in front of a dirty mirror. Done ogling. Bart asks. Izuku looks down in embarrassment. Sorry. What happened to not wanting to be a beach? Izuku flinches at the harsh tone. Sore. Did I just say? Bart leans down and looks into Izuku's eyes. He's so close that the smell of beer and sweat fills Izuku's nostrils. You walk in here, talk big, and then have nothing to back your words up. You're gonna need to fork over a hell of a lot of cash if you wanna. A wad of yen smacks him across the face, cutting off his words. I've got money, Izuku says. He stands up straight and sets his shoulders. He pushes his chin out and does his best to look confident. And I said I didn't want to be a beach anymore, not that I wasn't one. It feels weird to insult himself in front of what's basically a stranger, but it feels like the right thing to do. I'm willing to work hard. I'm willing to learn. But I am not willing to be walked all over. Not now, not ever again. Bart leans back, considering Izuku's words. His fingers touch where the yen impacted his cheek. If Izuku squints, he thinks he can see a red mark there. Much better, the man says after a while. Much, much better. You just might be worth a DMN. Follow me. The man leads Izuku to the back corner of the floor, passing racks of weights and people shadowboxing in front of mirrors. Everyone working out is fit and muscular, and Izuku can't help but compare himself to them even if they're twice or even 3 times his age. 4 months of strength and endurance training is a drop in the bucket to what they've got, and he looks like a twig next to them. But somehow that only makes him want to work harder. All right, let me see you hit that, Bart says, pointing to a black punching bag. Izuku walks up to it and PPS a fist back. He slams it as hard as he can into the punching bag, causing it to sway slightly. Good grief, that was awful. Izuku looks behind him to see Bart with his head in his hands. Have you ever been in a fight? Izuku thinks of all the times he's been shoved aside or had explosions thrown in his face. He never once did anything back. No. I can tell. Bart steps forward and pulls Izuku away from the bag. Using his feet, he pushes Izuku's legs so they're staggered. He pushes his shoulders down, causing his knees to bend. Finally, he positions Izuku's hands so they're in front of his face and upper torso. This is how you want to stand. Low center of gravity, solid stance on the ground, and arms protecting your face. You also want to be on your toes for better mobility. Got it? Yeah, Izuku says, standing on the ball of his feet. The position he's in is completely foreign, but it's not uncomfortable. So what now? When you punch, Bart explains, grabbing one of Izuku's hands and making it form a fist, you hit with the tips of your knuckles and your wrist has to be straight. If you don't do that, you'll break your fingers and F up your hand. Do you plan on boxing or doing MMA sheet? I want to be a pro hero, Izuku says. So whatever works for that. A pro, huh? Smart of you to learn to fight like this first. Not many heroes put in effort in anything but their quirks. Well, I'm quirkless, so it's my only real option. Bart stills for a moment and looks at him with wide eyes. You're quirkless? Izuku nods. DMN. Then you better be ready to work your butt off. Izuku works more than just his butt off. He works his arms, legs, hands, feet, torso, and even his back and neck until he's sore. And it's only day one. He's just starting on the basics. How to punch and how to kick are drilled into his mind, and he works until he gets it perfect. He also learns how to wrap his wrists, knees, and ankles, since joints are usually weaker than muscles, especially in people who've only recently started to work out. Like Izuku. By the time he has to go home, Izuku feels fulfilled. Dead on his feet and in desperate need of an ice bath, but fulfilled. The people respected him in the gym. They treated him like a kid because he is a kid. They didn't mock him for failing, they didn't treat him like he's worthless. Bart especially did that, claiming that if he's willing to limp home after doing literal hours of training, then he's welcome back whenever. So long as he pays, of course. The next day is Sunday. Izuku would usually spend it writing notes or doing homework before he started training, but that's long since changed. He wakes up early and immediately stretches because his muscles are sore. Once he's done with that, he jogs to Dagoba Beach. There's about half the trash left now, probably because Mirko can carry just about everything there with her quirk. Izuku's helped a little too, just to get some extra weight training in. But it's mostly her, and if she keeps up the pace, the beach will be clean in a few more months. Oi, you're late. Izuku doesn't flinch, but he does turn around. His teacher, who repeatedly claims that she's not his teacher, stands with her hands on her hips. A towel is draped over her shoulders, and she's sweating despite the fact that it's early in the morning. I did twice my usual work yesterday. I had to take some time to get out of bed. Izuku approaches Mirko. He looks around a bit and sees that there's a coil of rope hooked up to an old pickup truck. Why can't I be a few minutes behind? I mean, unless you need help moving that truck off the sand. Mirko snorts. In your dreams, kid, you could probably put on 200 kilos, sit in the bed of that, and load up a few hunks of scrap and I'd still be able to pull that thing. Sure you would, Izuku says. Whatever. I don't gotta prove myself to you, anyway. Mirko walks over to the truck and grabs a water bottle that's sitting on the hood. She takes a drink. How did your appointment with the fighting gym go? Good, Izuku says. I can tell that it'll be slow going, but by the time I take the UA entrance exam I'll be ready. Oh, and that thing you told me to say worked. Good. Show me what you've learned. Izuku blinks. Right now. Yeah, right now. Mirko shrugs her towel off and flexes her powerful legs. Unless you're afraid? I've had one day of training. You've had years. I think it's pretty damn unreasonable for me to be scared. Well, too fucking bad. Square up, green bean. Izuku barely has time to sidestep her first kick, and even then the air pressure generated knocks him off balance. Were you trying to cave my head in? He yells, getting up and settling into a stance. Mirko only laughs and rushes him again. This time she leads with a right hook, which Izuku ducks under. He counters with a straight jab into her stomach, but she takes the hit like it's nothing and sweeps his legs. Izuku hits the sand, but doesn't stop moving. He grabs onto one of her legs and tries to pull. He's kicked in the jaw and sent sprawling. As he stands up, stars dance across his vision. He dodges a kick and retaliates with his own. His leg is grabbed and Mirko forces him into the ground, pinning him in a rather uncomfortable hold. You're insane, Izuku says. There's no way you're normal. Are you a sticky? Mirko laughs and drops the hold. She helps Izuku back up. Twice a year I am. And that wasn't awful for one day of training. It felt pretty awful, Izuku mutters. Oh, I'm sure. But you didn't let yourself get destroyed. You countered, you threw a punch. Pretty dim and good, I'd say. But not good enough. Obviously, Izuku says, tempted to roll his eyes. I lost. Of course it wasn't good enough. You're going to lose your first first load of fights. That's just how it works. It's how you're fighting that's the problem, not how bad you did. I feel like those are the same thing. That's because you're an idiot. What are the rules of a fight? No attacking a downed opponent, no eye gouging, no hair pulling, no knees to the head, no. I get the picture, Mirko cuts him off. But that's wrong. But that's what the gym guys said? Yeah, because they fight in organized matches with referees and prize money. You're going through fight villains to save lives. Do you think a criminal is going to care about the no eye gouging rule? No. Then you shouldn't either. But I'm trying to be a hero, Izuku argues. Hair pulling and kicking someone when they're down isn't heroic. Is it more heroic to win a fight by pulling someone's hair or to lose that fight and risk people being hurt because you refuse to fight a little dirty? It's more heroic to win. Say that again. It's more heroic to win. Louder. It's more heroic to win. Good. Now come at me again. But this time, treat me like a threat. If you lose, people will get hurt, maybe even die. So do what you gotta do. Fight dirty, don't let me fight you on my terms, and above all win. Because in a real fight with lives online, there's only one rule: do everything you can to win. Izuku looks at Mirko and shifts his feet. He nods and pulls his fist back to punch. He throws it forward, but before she can grab or block it, he dives to the side and scoops up a handful of sand. He throws it in her face, blinding her. He gets up and charges, driving his shoulder into her gut. They hit the ground, and he decks her across the face before trying for a chokehold. But he's much, much weaker than her, and in 2 seconds it's him being choked out with his face in the sand. Effing great, Mirko says, letting go of his neck. Just like that. People might call you a coward for doing shit like that, but they're the cowards for not having the ball to ditch their dignity. All Might doesn't have to do stuff like that to win. Izuku coughs and rubs his neck. Don't compare yourself to All Might. You can't be him. Or even me. Do what works for you. What if I don't want to fight dirty? Izuku asks. Then get ready to get your butt beat. This time, Izuku does roll his eyes. Don't give me that sheet. Look at yourself. And I mean really look. Do you see a 2-meter tall wall of muscle with enough strength to level a mountain? 'Cause I sure as hell don't. Then what do I do? Izuku asks, frustrated. I know I can't be like him, but I still want to. I want to be a great hero people can look up to. Then FING win. People don't look up to losers. They look up to champions. So be a champion. I don't care if you have to kick men in the ball 20 times or sock a chick in the melons to do it, and you shouldn't either. Izuku sighs. Fine. Well now, do you just keep beating the crap out of me? Because I don't think my mom would be happy if I came home with bruises. We get to work is what we do, Mirko says, walking over and helping him stand. Kid, you ain't got no quirk, no muscle, and no battle sense. There's no way you'll be a hero like the big man. But that's fine. 'Cause instead of dressing you up in star-spangled underpants, I'm gonna make you fucking mean. Izuku looks into her eyes and sees fire, burning along with the blinding ferocity of her grin. He matches them with his own. Then let's get to work. Izuku wakes up at 5:30 am and goes for a run. Mirko had told him before that getting up early wasn't some kind of miracle maker, but it's the only time Izuku has to squeeze his cardio training in between school, lifting with Mirko, who's calling him her student now, finally, and sparring at the gym. The weekends are better, and he gets to spend hours fighting with Bart and the other boys at the gym and Mirko. But it's Monday, and Izuku happily runs 20 kilometers and is home by 7. Before, he would have had nightmares about running for so long at such a fast pace. But now, 2 months before the UDA entrance exam, cardio is his breakfast. His first one, anyways, since he downs a jug of water and a plate of eggs and rice before he gets in the shower. His mom's a godsend for making his meals. Izuku wouldn't have the time to do as much as he does if it weren't for her. And a few weeks back, the way she looks at him changed. When Izuku would go on about being a hero before, she'd look sad. No matter how hard she would try to hide it, Izuku would find the lack of belief in her eyes. But when he started filling out and came back covered in bruises from boxing at the gym, her eyes started to sparkle again. It only makes him want to succeed more. I was texting Miss Usajiyama the other night. His mom calls as he steps out of the bathroom. Oh yeah? Izuku asks, toweling off his hair and heading for his bedroom. What about? He'd given her Miruko's number when she'd asked about who was helping him. Miruko refuses to meet her no matter how much they text. It's kind of funny, really. The number 7 hero is afraid of Midoriya Inko to the point where she won't even tell her that she's a top-ranked hero. Dinner, his mom says happily. I'm trying to get her to come over Bartholomew, too. But they both say they're busy. You can't force them, Ma, Izuku says, putting on his school uniform. They're adults. And they both have full-time jobs. I know, sweetie, but they both deserve something for helping my baby boy. Izuku hears his mother turn on the sink and start to wash some dishes. Surely you could convince them to come over for dinner, just once. Izuku walks out of his bedroom, backpack over one shoulder. I'll try, but no promises, he says, entering the kitchen. His mom shuts off the sink and walks over. That's all I ask, she says, wrapping him up in a tight hug. She pulls back a moment later. I'm so proud of you. I know, Izuku says, backing up a little. You to me every day. Only so you don't forget, his mother explains. Now get out of here. The last thing I want is for you to be late for school. School's okay. He's still Deku to them. Small, weak, crying in the corner deli who has stupid, impossible dreams. They snicker to themselves whenever he walks by. No one sits with him at lunch. Everyone, teachers included, try to make him look like an idiot. But no one outright harasses him. He's not shoved into lockers, no spitballs are launched into his hair, and he never gets an unfair punishment. And that's the basics of what you can expect your high school math courses to look like. A little scary, but it's like it was before when you were learning basic algebra. You're just unlocking new buttons on the calculator. Of course, all of you should memorize what the sine, cosine, and tangent formulas are, but that's a job for summer break. The tall, lanky teacher puts down his notes and looks at his watch. We've got 10 minutes left. I'll leave everything up on the board. Feel free to read something or look at your phones if you like. Instantly, every student at a desk has their cell phone out and open to an app. Technically, they're supposed to have them powered off completely at school, but no one ever pays attention to that rule. Not even Izuku, who pulls his out along with a notebook and a few different colored pens. Hero analysis for the future has been replaced. Now, Izuku writes notes, sketches drawings, and doodles in operational systems for the future. It's basically a collection of different ideas that he thinks would be useful for a quirkless hero. Costume designs and marketing strategies are swapped for support item concepts. There's a whole page dedicated to what knots to use when, since he fully plans on having rope at all times. The big, flashy heroes who took up most of HF are relegated to footnotes. Lesser known and less powerful heroes are now the star of the show. Izuku wants to emulate Rock Lock's parkour skills, Gunhead's swift takedowns, Snipe's precision, and Sir Nightai's ability to read a tense situation. But the main section of Izuku's new notebook isn't about heroes. It's about fighting. Drawings of moves to try out at the gym are common, as are underhanded tactics for him to use if he's in a tight spot. A lot of the martial arts are Western-inspired, since Izuku's most familiar with boxing and freestyle wrestling with some basic MMA techniques thrown in. He likes to keep an open mind, though, and has more than a few sketches of Muay Thai moves mixed in beside uppercuts and hooks. Most of the information is found online. Izuku's YouTube feed is almost completely made up of clips from martial arts competitions. It's hard to find new ones, since no one cares much for quirkless combat anymore, but there's plenty from the 21st century and back. Olympic-level wrestling is one of his favorite things to watch. He pays the most attention to the lightweight classes, since he's small himself, and breaks down every fight on its own page. Izuku watching a particularly daring throw, slowed down to quarter speed so he can watch how both the combatants move when his phone is knocked out of his hand. Oh, so, a person says, stopping when they see it's Izuku they disturbed. They quickly turn back in their seat, not bothering to help him pick up his fallen phone. They even go so far as to kick it away, so they don't have to deal with him reaching near them for it. Izuku sighs and looks over to where his phone slid. Luckily, it shut off when he dropped it. Unluckily, it stopped sliding under Kaken's seat. Izuku takes a deep breath and gets up from his spot. He makes sure to close his notebook and slip it into his bag. Then he walks over, avoiding eye contact. Maybe if he says nothing, Kaken will ignore him. He kneels down beside Kaken's desk and reaches for his phone. The other boy isn't reacting. Maybe. An explosion, small but white-hot, burns the back of his hand and chars his phone. Izuku yelps and jumps back, banging his head on the underside of Kaken's desk. Fucking watch yourself, nerd. If you want your phone back, wait till after class. Izuku nods and mumbles and apologizes before scampering back to his desk. No one bats an eye, which is usual. He's forced to sit and stare at a wall for the remaining 5 minutes of class, nursing his burnt hand. It's not so bad, he thinks. A little red and probably bruised, but all the skin's intact and there's no blood. He'll go home and ice it for a few minutes before lifting weights. When the bell finally rings, Izuku rushes out of his seat and over to his phone. Kaken trips him on the way and he rams his face into the wall, but he gets his phone in his pocket before anyone can do anything. It's a success in his book. Standing up, Izuku dusts off his uniform and hurries out the door, keeping his head down and trying to ignore the laughter that follows him. He makes it out of the building and breathes a sigh of relief in the school courtyard. Oi, Deku! Sheet, Izuku mumbles, standing up straight and turning around. Kaken struts up to him, smiling like they're old buddies. The fact that his left palm is smoking down beside his waist and that his other arm is behind his back ruins any hope that he'll be nice for once. Hi, Kaken, Izuku stutters, cringing at how weak he sounds. So much for not being a beach. All it took was for a blonde loudmouth walking up to him to flush every ounce of confidence he gained down the drain. Don't fucking call me that, dipshit, Kaken snarls, still smiling. Don't speak unless I ask you to there, he orders, grabbing the collar of Izuku's uniform and pushing him back. He hits a lamppost and his head bounces off of the metal. Izuku opens his mouth to reply, but he thinks better of it. Now what the F is this? Kaken screams, moving a notebook in Izuku's face. A very familiar notebook with his handwriting on it. It's hero stuff, Izuku explains. I thought it'd be a good idea if I explored other ideas for being a hero. I can't just do nothing but fanboy, you know? Kaken slaps him across the face with his own notebook. Shut the F up about being a hero. You'll never fucking make it, so throw this sheet away and forget about it. No. Izuku says. It's my dream. Doesn't FNG matter, Kaken says, spitting on the ground. Both of his hands explode, burning Izuku's neck, notebook, and uniform. I'm sick of your sheet, Deku. He throws the notebook into a nearby trash can. Don't try to pick that shutout, you hear? Izuku whimpers, and Kaken gives him one last shove into the lamppost before walking off. Naturally, the first thing Izuku does is pull his notebook out of the trash. It's burned but salvageable. He puts it back in his bag, which has one of the zippers undone. Kaken must have gotten to it when Izuku was walking down the hall. What the F did I tell you? Izuku jumps out of his skin, heart skipping 3 beats. Kaken appears out of nowhere and lets an explosion rip right in his face. Izuku stumbles back and falls down. He curls up in a ball, ready for a beating. It never comes. Kaken spits on his shoes and storms off. Izuku cries the whole way home. As much as he'd like to stay home and feel bad for himself, Izuku can't. He has a commitment, but he doesn't want Mirko to see him like this. His right eyebrow is singed off, and his face and neck are red. He stares at his reflection for a while before digging through his mom's makeup. He draws on an eyebrow, having to try 4 times to get it right. He applies some powder to his face and neck, trying to make sure it blends with his skin. Then he heads for the beach. Mirko is waiting for him. She's long since cleaned up Dagoba and Izuku as a little private training area that only they know about. It's hidden by a few rocks, but it's just big enough for makeshift weights and a chair for her to sit on. Mirko, Izuku's found, likes to watch people struggle. She'll order him to lift light until failure and then scream at him as his body shakes, and she'll make him max out quite often, just to see how he looks when he's right. About to collapse. Izuku doesn't mind since she encourages him the whole time. Not that she'd call it encouragement. Arms today, kid, she orders, sitting back with her feet up on a stack of weights. She has her hero costume on and a bottle of water by her side, but she doesn't look the least bit tired. How was patrol? Izuku asks, grabbing a dumbbell and getting ready for curls. Fucking boring, Mirko says. I got almost no action today. This area is drying out of villains fast. I bet combat isn't the only action you're missing out on, Izuku grunts, the rusty iron of the weight's handle digging into his palm. The hell does that mean? Mirko asks, daring him to explain. Oh, you know, Izuku says, giving her a once-over and making an unimpressed face. It'd just be hard for someone like you to pick up guys. Or girls. Not like it'd make a difference for you. Excuse you, Mirko says, chucking her water bottle at his head. Izuku dunks, but a few drops land in his hair. I'll have you know that I'm AC on legs. More like sass on legs, Izuku mutters. I heard that. Mirko reaches for another thing to throw at him but finds nothing. I can pull anyone when I want. Have you seen my thighs? Or my abs? I have, Izuku admits. But I prefer Mount Lady. Oh, you're gonna get it, Mirko says, half laughing as she stands up. Izuku drops his dumbbells and picks up a handful of sand. That sheet won't work twice, you know. Wanna bet? Izuku taunts, hefting his sand. Sure, 'cause you're gonna lose. Mirko rushes at him, sweeping at his legs with a low kick. Izuku hops back and ducks under a hook before jabbing her in the gut. Mirko punches his chest, but Izuku angles his body so it grazes his shirt. Hey look, a distraction, he says, pointing into the sky. Mirko laughs, and Izuku chucks his sand right into her mouth. She coughs and he punches her in the right BOE before tackling her. They grapple on the ground, Izuku quickly losing the upper hand due to Mirko's enhanced strength and better experience. The fight ends with Izuku pinned under Mirko with her hands around his throat. A lot of guys would pay to be in this situation, you know. I needed an adult, Izuku wheezes. Mirko snorts and rolls off of him. Cheeky bastard. Izuku sits up and gently rubs his neck. She wasn't overly rough, but it's still Esikas being choked. He pulls his hand away and sees streaks of something tan on his palms. He touches it. It spreads easily. Makeup. His hands move up to his face. His eyebrow is gone, the dark green stuff he used smeared all over his cheek. He looks over to Mirko. She has makeup on her skin, too, much more obvious because she's so much darker than the shade he picked. His mentor looks over to him, hand held up, palm facing him. Care to explain why you look like you had a grease fire while making breakfast this morning? No, Izuku says, looking away. Mirko remains silent for a moment. Does your mother hurt you? No. Izuku denies. She's amazing. She'd never burn me or break my things. She's the perfect mother. But someone would. Izuku doesn't reply. His mouth feels too dry to speak. What about your dad? Izuku shakes his head. Sibling. Another shake. Someone at school, then Mirko settles on. Izuku doesn't move. He hears her lean back and lay on the sand. Don't talk if you don't want to talk, Mirko says. I'm not going to force answers out of you. But kid, do you like being treated that way? That's a dumb question. I figured you didn't, Mirko continues, unfazed. Have you tried getting it to stop? Yeah. Do you fight back? Izuku takes a shaky breath. No, he admits. I try to do what everyone says to do. Say stop, talk to teachers, avoid him, complain to the principal, don't agitate. But it never works, and every time I think about throwing a punch I just... He flops his hands by his side. How long has this been going on for? Like 10 years. Geez. You've let him walk all over you for that long? I don't let him, Izuku tries. You don't fight back, that means you're letting him do this. You can't fight Kaken. Well, you could, but I can't. Okay, number 1, don't call your bully that. Call him shithead, or something else insulting. And number 2, why? Why what? Why can't you? I thought you were over feeling inadequate because you're quirkless. He's got a strong quirk, and he's been winning fights with older kids since the 1st grade. How big is he? A few centimeters taller than me. We weigh about the same, I think. Does he fight full-grown men and a pro hero daily? No. Then you can kick his butt? No, I can't. Yes, you can. No. Heroes don't let people walk all over them. I said. I heard you. I want to stop him, I really do. But he's been putting me down for so long that I don't think I can stand back up. Tough shit, you'll have to do it anyways. What? That doesn't. A hero's job isn't to think about whether or not they can do something. Their job is to do that thing, no matter what. No hesitation, no complaints. Do or die. Because at the end of your day, it's not about you. It's about the people you protect. So tell me, how the F are you going to stare down the impossible when you're a pro if you can't even stand up to some twerp? Stop letting that kid rule your head and beat his butt into the dirt. I want to, Izuku says, tears welling up. Really do. But every time he grabs me, freeze. I can help you with that. Mirko stands and extends a hand. Izuku takes it. The next time that fucker comes around and tries to hurt you, this is what you do. It doesn't take long for Bakugo to harass him again. In fact, the day after Izuku told Mirko about him, Bakugo loudly swipes Izuku's notebook off of his desk. One of his extras snatches it from the floor and tosses it to someone else, and a game of keep away forms. Izuku tries to get it back, but not as hard as he could. He copied everything into a new one the night before, and the charred old one is a decoy. But he can't do anything here in class. It's too open and there's not enough people. Mirko's plan is a simple one, but Izuku's not sure if he can pull it off. Bakugo's stronger than him maybe, since he's apparently been working out too. The plan could fail, and if it does, Izuku will probably be expelled. Actually, even if it works, he'll probably be punished severely. But he wants to try. He wants to grow stronger, mentally and emotionally. Because after taking a long, hard look in the mirror, he understands that he can't keep thinking of Bakugo as someone to be admired. Instead, he tries to think of him as an obstacle to overcome. But first, he has to muster up the guts to go through with the plan and make sure it happens at the right time. It happens when they're on their way to gym class. Someone had thrown Izuku's decoy notebook in the trash, but he pulled it out once everyone but him had left the room. Once he's walking down the hallway, he opens it up and starts to flip through it. But he's not paying attention to the pages. He keeps an eye out, looking for someone to notice him. Eventually, someone shoulder checks him into a locker, and Izuku watches as they push their way up to the front of the mob of students. Moments later, Izuku sees Bakugo shove a younger boy aside and get ready to attack him. A crowd clears, and Izuku tosses his notebook away. Nice try, nerd, Bakugo sneers. Izuku can already smell the sweet stench of nitroglycerin in the air. But I'm not as fucking idiot. I told you to stop with the hero sheet, but you haven't. My mother always told me not to listen to idiots, Izuku says calmly. He forces his expression to stay neutral, but he has to clench his fists so hard that he can feel his nails digging into his palms to keep from shaking. The F, did you just say? It's funny that you tell me that I'm not fit to be a hero when you can't even talk to a toddler without making them cry, Izuku continued. I guess worshipping All Might's strength for all these years made you misunderstand what it means to be a hero. Bakugo blinks, slack-jawed like he can't believe what's happening. He quickly schools his expression into something more angry. I'm gonna fucking burn you, he snarls. He takes a few steps forward, but Izuku holds his ground. Quirkless filth like you doesn't get to lecture me on being the greatest. Bakugo raises his right arm high. His hand cracks with orange hot explosions and he brings it down, aiming for the side of Izuku's face. It's so predictable that Mirko would laugh and make him run 20 laps if she saw Izuku do such a thing. He ducks under the swipe. Bakugo, expecting to meet static flesh, stumbles off balance. Izuku punches him in the face, once, twice. 2 cracks echo through the halls as the hits land, and Bakugo jumps back, cupping his nose. Izuku can see tears welling up in his eyes. The opponent is blind. He punches him in the throat next. Bakugo coughs like he's going to hack up a lung and tries to retaliate with another right hook. Izuku grabs his arm, turns, and flips Bakugo over his shoulder. Bakugo has the sense to detonate both of his hands, forcing Izuku to release him. The other boy tries to stand back up, but Izuku rams his shoulder into his chest, knocking Bakugo into the lockers with a thump. Bakugo wheezes, finding that he's lost the air in his lungs. Then, Izuku backs up and raises his right arm high above his head like he's going to deck Bakugo across the face. Bakugo flinches and raises his hands to block. But Izuku doesn't throw a right hook. Instead he bends his knees, shifts forward and uppercuts Bakugo. It's perfect form. He generates most of the force with his legs, pushing up on the ground before putting all of his body weight into it. He punches Bakugo so hard his knuckles split open. But that's fine because his old bully is out cold on the ground. In a moment of sheer contempt, Izuku kicks Bakugo's ribs. It's partly to make sure the boy's actually out, but Izuku admits to himself that it feels good to kick Bakugo when he's down when it used to be him on the other end of the stick. He looks around at the stunned audience. He squares his shoulders and stands tall. Anyone else? This is absolutely disgusting. Never in my years as a school principal has such a thing happened. Ma'am, I know it's terribly impolite to say this, but what the hell have you been teaching your son? What have I been teaching my son? I'm sorry, but you'll have to explain that question further because I just don't understand. Your son attacked Bakugo out of spite. We have witnesses that all agree on the fact that Bakugo was teasing Midoriya all in good fun, mind you, and for no good reason Midoriya started hitting Bakugo with the intent to harm. What have you been teaching your son that makes him think it's okay to do such a thing? Because he certainly didn't learn it here. I'm afraid that my son says that something different happened. Of course he did. There's no way he'd own up to attacking another boy. Children lie, you know. Do you mind if we let him in, then? So he can hear about the evidence? Certainly. Boy, you can come in now. I know you're spying. Izuku calmly opens the door of the principal's office and steps inside. His mom is sitting in a cheap chair all prim and proper. Her hair is done up nice and her posture is perfect. But she's not smiling. Others would probably think that she's calm, but Izuku knows that on the inside she's steaming in anger. Izuku sits down without a word and looks the principal dead in the eye. He doesn't even bother with hiding his anger. Bakugo, Katsuki, and everyone else in that hallway is a liar. The principal snorts and pushes a folder full of papers across his desk. And all of these written accounts from students and teachers are lies then too? Yes, Izuku says, holding. The principal laughs. Good luck proving that in court. Sir, will you be submitting security camera footage for the trail? Izuku asks causally. What? You know, the video that shows Bakugo attacking me first? Izuku explains like he's talking to a child. The footage from the cameras that the board had installed in all of the hallways, offices, gymnasiums everywhere that's not a classroom, bathroom, or changing room really. We have dozens of. You have dozens of papers written by middle schoolers and incompetent teachers. Izuku's mother cuts him off. Children lie, you know, especially for people they like, and young Bakugo is quite popular. If you don't submit the unedited footage to be used in court, then there's no way you can prove that Izuku attacked first. It'll have to be settled out of court, or if we or the Bakugos go through with pressing charges, we'll win, Izuku continues. Your school will be looked at as incompetent and full of delinquents. You'll lose financial backing and parents will pull their kids once they release that you don't do anything to deal with bullying. I'm going to expel you, the principal says. Even if you win that hypothetical case, you'll have an expulsion on your record for fighting. Good luck getting into any high school with that. Izuku's mom sets a piece of paper on the table. He's transferring to East Mizudafa High, his mother says, and the principal snaps up the paper. Everything's already gone through. Izuku will not be expelled, though Bakugo should be. Katsuki has the potential to be an amazing hero, the principal explains. Bakugo has the potential to be a massive a-hole, Izuku mutters. Oh wait, he already is one. You watch your mouth, boy, the principal scolds. I'd prefer it if you didn't yell at my son for speaking the truth, his mother says. I've heard a lot about that young man recently. I'm quite surprised something like this didn't happen sooner. And sweetie, please watch your language. Izuku nods but doesn't mean it one bit. Whatever fear he had of Bakugo and the teachers is gone now, probably because this is the last he'll see of them. Bakugo's attitude problems aside. Is that what you're calling it? He is still on track to make it into UA, or failing that, Saiketsu. The principal leans back in his chair, relaxing like he just won the whole argument. Izuku also plans on applying to UA, his mom counters. And all the other major schools too. Surely he deserves the same treatment for any attitude issues. The principal chortles. You can't be serious. We are, Izuku says, sitting up straighter. Bakugo has the potential to be a great hero, the principal repeats. You do not. And why is that? His mother asks. What makes you able to say something like that? Are you a former pro? Hardly, the principal says, but anyone logical can understand my line of thinking. I'm afraid I don't understand your logic, his mother says. Explain. No. Why not? Izuku asks, leaning forward and resting his elbows on his knees. I can't. Izuku snorts. Can't or won't. The principal remains silent. Say what you want to say, sir. Surely you can excuse me for not understanding your supreme logic. You're quirkless, the principal says stiffly. Quite frankly, I don't care about it. I know you're not dumber or less evolved than everyone else. But look at the big picture. Bakugo is the next endeavor. You'll be lucky to end up as a fast food worker. From the corner of his eye, Izuku sees his mother smile. Right in front of him, the principal shivers. She pulls her phone out of her purse. The screen shows that there's an ongoing call, one on speakerphone. The contact's name is Hisashi. Did you hear that, honey? Every last word. I'll make sure it's all sent to our lawyer. Izuku perks up at his father's voice. It's the first he's heard it in ever, probably. If we want, this will all be open and shut. I'd argue it myself if it weren't for personal bias laws or my place of work. You can't do that, the principal screams. He stands up and tries to reach for the phone. Izuku gets between him and his mother. You can, his father says. Police record people when they're not aware all the time. So do heroes. Izuku, why don't you step outside, his mother says, holding out her phone. Izuku looks at the phone and then to his mother. She nods. Outside the office, Izuku leans against a wall and presses the phone to his ear. Hi. You sound just like my younger brother. Huh. Aki. Your uncle. You've never met him. His father sighs. Look, I know you probably don't want to talk about stuff like that. I wish I could be a good father. Me too, Izuku without thinking. His father laughs. Sheesh, that was a cold one. I guess it's not a shock that you're not talking after your mother. I am. Oh yeah, his father says. Quite sassy, that one. She can be, at least. It's a good thing too. You can't go through life letting people walk over you. It took me too long to figure it out. Yeah, Izuku says, relating to it all too much. Do you know why I'm not around? His father asks. Work, Izuku says bitterly. Yep. I work so your mom doesn't have to. And so you won't have to either. What? Who do you think is getting all of my money when I'm gone? His father asks rhetorically. But you don't want to get by on daddy's money, do you? No. But I like that. Bust your butt being a hero. Save lives, earn a living. Not that it matters what I like. It does, Izuku says weakly. It don't. His father sighs again, heavy and disappointed. I left you. It was to give you a good life, yeah, but I'm not your dad. Not really. I'm sorry for that. I'm okay with it, Izuku says. I'm happy without you. Good, his father says. You should be. Do you at least have role models other than your mom? Yeah, Izuku says, thinking of Mirko and Bart. And the guys at the gym. But you learn from them. Become a strong man. Be a hero. I will. And when I get back, I want to get to know you for real. If that's okay, at least. I'd like that too. I think. One last thing, Izuku says, sensing that their conversion is about over. What is it, kid? If you're rich, why do mom and I live in a tiny apartment? Your mother hates wasting money. She pawned the first wedding dress I bought her because she thought it was a total waste. Before the wedding, mind you, so we had to get her a new one that wasn't too extra. Ah. Yup. How'd it go? Mirko asks the second he steps on the beach. I broke his nose and bullied the school into giving me money to settle out of court. Nice. Did he cry? Nah, Izuku says. But only because I knocked him out. Mirko whistles. Sheet man, did you spit on him too? I thought about it, Izuku admits, but I didn't think it was worth it, you know? Yeah. Did you have to deal with the sheetstain's parents? Nope. Though his mom apparently wanted to know if he was asking for it. Who'd she ask that? My mom, who said yes right to her face. Interesting, Mirko says, looking at her nails. Pray tell, is Midoriya Inko single? Izuku blinks. She's married. To my father. Yeah, but... Mirko wiggles her eyebrows. Izuku sighs and picks up a handful of sand. I'm going to make sure this gets in your hair and then I'm going to punch you in the mouth. Hard. Fucking bring it, great bean. Once I kick but we're going to your place for dinner and I'm gonna get cozy with your mama. Weren't you afraid of her? I still am, but now it's for a good reason. Izuku gets his butt kicked, but Mirko still doesn't have the courage to eat dinner at his apartment. His smug look doesn't go away for a week. It's Izuku's first day of school, but he treats it like a normal day. He runs, he showers, he eats breakfast, he talks with his mom, and he goes over his plans for the day. The only differences are that his uniform is a gray blazer with black slacks and a red tie, and his school is a longer train ride away. He starts putting everything on earlier because of that, and quickly finds that the uniform is the wrong size. The pants are too big and want to sag, forcing him to tighten his belt more than usual. The white button-down and blazer, however, are too small. They just won't button over his chest, which isn't even that big. The sleeves are too short, riding up on his forearms, and the tie is way too small. This is ridiculous, Izuku mutters, trying to force one of the buttons through its hole. He manages to get it in and has a brief moment of cheer. Then the button snaps and bounces off of his mirror. Izuku takes a heavy sigh and heads to his mother. My uniform's all wrong, he says, holding up an arm. His mother looks up from her magazine frowns. I gave them the same measurements as the last one, she says, standing up and plucking his tie from his. Maybe they were out of the right sizes? Your transfer was on short notice. They would have said something, Izuku says, watching his mother work the tie into a knot. An email maybe, or at ordination a few days ago. They didn't, his mother grumbles, finishing the knot. She slides it up and takes a step back. She frowns. It looks awful. Izuku looks down and winces. Yeah, he agrees. It's maybe 5 or 6 centimeters long and half that wide. It looks like a tie for a child on him. I'll talk to the principal about it. I'll send an email too, his mother says. But for now just do your best. If anyone gives you trouble, just explain. Got it? Got it. Good. His mother leans in and pecks him on the cheek. I'm proud of you, Izuku. A month and a half. You can do it. Izuku smiles. Love you too, Mom. East Mizurufu Junior High is a large school. There's 3 floors, 2 basement levels, a track, a pool, and a student body in the thousands. If he were worried about fitting in, Izuku probably would have gone with something smaller. But he'll only be there for 6 weeks, and friends can wait until UA. Or after Udare, since he's part of a rather disliked minority. He still plans on making a good impression. The last thing he wants is to deal with another Bakugo. Or anyone from his old school, really. Not that his wants mean anything. He'll probably be made fun of anyway, which he's accepted. He just hopes it's not too much to ask for some common decency. But if his uniform is anything to go off of, it probably is. Izuku jogs up the steps of the massive school and walks through the glass doors. He checks in at the front office and double-checks his room number. The secretary points him in the right direction and Izuku heads for classroom 3G. When he gets there he finds that it's empty. No teacher, no students. He was told that there's no assigned seats, so he carefully picks the right one for him. The back row right by the window becomes his temporary home. He slides his backpack under his seat and pulls out his notebook. He starts to go over different kinds of throws. Gradually, people start to trickle in. Most barely give him more than a second glance, but one bit takes one look at him and glares. He practically stomps over to Izuku's desk and slams his meaty hands over his notes. Izuku calmly pulls his things away as the boy begins to speak. "You're in my spot. I don't see your name on it. I always sit there." "Not today you don't." "Says who?" "Some new punk with a shitty tie." "My tie is the same as yours, isn't it?" Someone snickers and the boy flushes. He angrily sits down next to Izuku and starts to rummage through Sue's bag. Probably for something to make spitballs out of. He's off to a great start. The rest of the class fills in after that. When the bell finally rings, the teacher walks in. She's a rather small and thin woman with bubblegum pink hair done up in a tight bun. She accepts the class's greeting and orders them to sit. "We have a new student here today," she says. "Midoriya, could you stand?" Izuku gets up from his seat and puts his hands in his pockets. It's half to keep his pants from sagging even more and half to hide how nervous he is, which isn't much, but he doesn't exactly want to be seen as weak. "Hi. I'm Midoriya Izuku. I'm 15 and I transferred here from Aldera. Thank you for having me." He bows politely and waits for permission to sit. "What kind of career options are you looking into?" the teacher asks. "Heroics," Izuku says bluntly. "Do you have any hobbies?" "Working out. Boxing." The teacher blinks as though she's never dealt with an overly blunt teenager before. "Alright. Thank you for talking about yourself, Midoriya. You may sit. Everyone, today you'll be going over the sine cosine." Izuku leans back in his chair and sighs. Great. The first day of school is going to be full of review. He makes it to lunch without anything bad happening. It should feel like a miracle, but Izuku desperately wanted to keep his head down until the end of the semester. He does his best to keep his distance, being blunt and a few words. People take it at face value and keep away. Or they ask about his quirk and leave him alone when they hear that he doesn't have one. Fine, good, even. No bullies, no distractions. He's cool with it. Then he sees a first year being harassed by a trio of third-year girls and his blood gets hot. He gives it a few chances. First he looks around for teachers. There's only one and he doesn't seem to care. None of the other students do either. Izuku takes a deep breath and counts down from 3. 3. The first year's lunch tray slams into the ground. One of the girls yanks the first year's hair, causing them to scream in pain. What? Another girl calls the first year an awful slur. Action. Izuku walks over to the girls, clenching his fists. He sees Bakugo among them and feels the urge to take a swing. But he can't throw the first punch. That would get him in deep trouble. So he keeps calm. "Lay off of them," Izuku says loudly. The girls turn to look at him and glares. The first year freezes, unsure if it's safe to get away. "Or what?" one of the girls asks. "You'll tattle?" "No," Izuku says. "But I'll distract you enough for them to get away." The girls look behind them to see that the first year has disappeared along with their lunch. "Great," one of the girls mutters. "Just great. You've chased away our fun." "Boo-hoo," Izuku says. "I'm sorry for stopping you from enjoying someone else's suffering." "Jackass," another swears. "Who do you think you are? Butting in and ruining everything?" "A hero." That seems to set them off, because one of the girls lunges at him. Izuku calmly sidesteps and trips her with his foot. She lands flat on her face. She gets back up and shoves him. Izuku doesn't budge. She takes a swing and Izuku ducks. He throws a punch of his own, right at her chin. It lands and hits the ground. And that's how Izuku winds up with 3 hours of cleaning duty on his first day of school. It's not really a punishment since the girls who were bullying the first year are given suspensions. Izuku's still surprised though. People actually came forward and said that the girl attacked first and that she was harassing another kid. The only reason Izuku has to mop floors is to make the parents feel better. It has the downside of making people think he's a delinquent, though. By the end of the day, Izuku can hear the whispers in the halls. They keep their distance and try to sneak glances at his hands, looking for evidence to prove that he did, in fact, knock a girl out in one hit. Someone even calls him One Punch Boy before being called an idiot because that's a stupid name. Izuku gets a chuckle out of it. Hey you! Izuku looks up from his bucket of soapy water to see a girl marching up to him. She's holding a broom and her green hair sways from side to side. You're that dude who knocked that beach out at lunch, right? Izuku blinks. Yeah. Awesome. She leans the broom on the wall and slips into a fighting stance. She throws a few punches at the air. How the hell do you knock someone out in one hit? She asks. 'Cause I know how to fight, but not anything as badass as that. You have to put your legs into it, Izuku explains. They're the biggest muscles. I kind of hop when I want to do it because I push on the ground so hard. Cool. Like this. The girl does a rough approximation of the move Izuku used to knock Bakugo out. Close enough. Nice. Is it true that you want to be a hero? The girl leans on the wall beside her broom and crosses her arms. Yes, Izuku says. The girl smiles, her teeth long and pointed like an alligator's. I have a proposition for you. No. Oh, don't play hard to get. You haven't even listened end to what I have to say. I want to be a hero too. If we work together, we'll have a better shot. I already have plenty of help, thank you. Okay, but a little more wouldn't hurt, right? You'd get a sparring partner out of it, and I have a really cool quirk. Not interested. I'm taking the recommended exam for UA at the end of the week. Izuku stills and looks at the girl. It's hard to tell with her uniform, but she looks fit. The small amount of skin he can see between the bottom of her skirt and the top of her socks is toned and lean. She carries herself well, on the ball of her feet and with loose confidence. She's clearly a fighter. I knew that'd get ya, she says, grinning. She takes a couple more steps and loops an arm around his shoulders like they're old friends. She pokes his chest a few times. See, we're both certified badasses and certified badasses need to stick together. Why don't you agree to my little proposition? It's for mutual benefit. I get stronger, you get stronger, it'll be awesome. I'm Quirkless. I don't give a shit. I've only been training for 8 or so months. I don't give a shit. Izuku sighs, not seeing anything wrong with it. Fine. I'm Midoriya. What's your name? The girl smiles, her pointy teeth almost making her seem predatory. Tokage. Tokage Setsuna. I met someone, Izuku says, carefully working through his second set of push-ups as Mirko flips through a paperback. Be more specific, she orders. Like a date? A friend? A fine woman that looks suspiciously like your mother but doesn't have an a-hole for a teenage son. Izuku chuckles but keeps his focus on his push-ups. No, I met someone like you. So smart, compassionate, strong, confident, and good-looking? Mirko asks. No, a pain in the butt. Mirko roars with laughter, chucking her novel into the sand. Good one. Do another set of push-ups or I'll tell your mother that you hit a girl in school today. She probably already knows, Izuku says. There's no reason why the school wouldn't call her. And by tell I assume you mean text. Threatening to tell my mother won't work until you actually meet her. Smartest, Mirko mutters. What are you even going to do with this person you met? Spar, Izuku says. I need to fight against someone with a quirk that's not a mutation. And she's taking the UA recommendation exam so I could probably learn a thing or two from her. Good thing, Mirko says. Sticking to one thing is harmful in the long run. Get a couple fights in with her before you start applying to schools. Where you guys gonna fight? Here, Izuku says, done with his push-ups. He stands and stretches his muscles. At the beach. Yup. When? Izuku looks down at his wrist which does not have a watch on it. Any second now. And you didn't tell me. Nope. BSTD. Tokage takes Mirko's presence quite well for someone who didn't have a clue about it. She does ask for an autograph, though, which she gets. After that, Izuku and Tokage spar until the sun goes down. Izuku never wins, mostly because her quirk is amazingly strong and she has a good grip on it. But each time he puts up a better fight and inches closer to victory. By the end of the day they're both exhausted, sweaty, and smiling. The exam looms on the horizon, and Izuku looks it in the eye. He will be ready, Let's go. One for round. Izuku takes a ragged breath and wipes the sweat from his brow with the hem of his shirt. It does little since the cloth is completely soaked. Dimmin Bart for cranking the heat up at a time like this. I'm ready, he says, voice strong despite his exhausted muscles. His opponent, who's a much bigger man with a snake tattoo on his left arm, raises his fists. Izuku does the same. He ducks under a swipe and throws a few jabs at the man's ribs. He spins to avoid being grabbed and kicks the man in the knee. He's rewarded with a grunt of pain and presses the attack. An uppercut. 2 hooks, one to each side of the waist. A knee to the thigh. He has to keep the momentum up. It's the only way for him to win when his opponent can soak up his hits. Izuku tries to hit the man's sternum with his elbow, but his opponent has had enough. The man pivots so he's perpendicular with Izuku, lowers his shoulder, and drives. Izuku hits the mat and scrambles to get up. He's kicked in the chest, Sparta style. In the blink of an eye he's in a hold, unable to escape. He taps out. Good work, you two, Bart says, tossing them both water bottles. Midoriya, you got too greedy. Don't get caught up in the offensive. Land a few good hits and get the F out of there and wait for another opening. You're a goddamn cardio bunny, you'll outlast most of the guys here. Izuku chuckles at the bunny comment and takes the criticism easily. Thanks. Bart nods his head. And you my guy. Don't let him do that shit. You took way too long to stop him. He shouldn't be gotten that many hits in. You leans against the ropes of the ring. I wasn't confident in my ability to lay him out right away. I needed a second to plan and get ready. Midoriya's FNG tiny, Bart swears, causing Izuku to snort. Deck him across the face sheet, deck him anywhere and he'll go flying. Just don't give the kid a concussion. He pays me good money. You're good, Izuku says, obviously joking. Just let me put in the work. You counter when you feel ready. Little sheet. Bart takes a lazy swipe at his head from the other side of the ropes. Quit sabotaging your competition. But how else am I supposed to win? Izuku asks. He gestures to you, who's toweling off his chest which is gleaming with sweat. He weighs like 100 kilos more than me. I don't give a shit just as long as it's all fair and I'm the ring, Bart says, standing up straight. You're the one who's trying to go pro. Figure out a way to do it without your fancy tricks. Else you'll get curb stomped on your first patrol. Izuku can't think of a good argument, so like any normal teenager, he rolls his eyes. Good lord, you're a piece of work. Go run a few laps and come back to me when you're less moody. Izuku doesn't complain even though he's far from moody. He respects Bart and his choice of fighting style, and he's learned so much from his time at the gym. But the live fights there aren't good for much compared to what he can get from Mirko and Tokage. At the gym he has to follow the basic rules and keep his mouth shut. At the beach he can cut loose and insult, taunt, and fight as dirty as he likes. He loves the gym and will keep going to it, but he'd rather fight on his own terms, and there's nothing wrong with that. He finishes his laps, which are around the block, because Bart refuses to buy a treadmill or make an actual running area in the gym, and heads back in. He spars a few times, works on a throw with someone his size, and talks strategy with a few of the guys. Then he goes home, showers, eats, and sleeps. When he wakes up he stares at the ceiling. He's been waiting 10 months for this. Even longer, technically, but he doesn't like to count the time before he met Mirko. Because he wasn't really preparing for it. But no matter how long he lays there and thinks it over, the UDA entrance exam is today, and he has to be ready. The first thing he does is drink some water and set his clothes out. He wants to be both light and warm in the cool February air, so he decides on track pants, a tank top, and a light zip-up hoodie. Then he eats breakfast with his mom. They're both silent, the stress of the morning forcing them into an unspoken agreement. Then he gets dressed and makes sure that he has everything in order. His bag is packed, he has his ID, he's got a snack for later. He's ready. But he's jittery. He needs his run. He goes all the way to the beach, fully aware that he should be conserving as much energy as possible. A light jog won't hurt, he figures. He needs to warm up anyways, and he can't feel nervous during the written parts of the test, so he keeps running. He makes it there well before he has to catch a train to UA. The sand is pristine and white, and the waves are a cold gray. It's winter and yet Dagoba looks beautiful. Mirko really put in a lot of work. The headlines hadn't shut up about it for weeks, and people spent days sunbathing all summer. But one spot remains private. A wall of rock guards a section of the beach, impassable unless one knows which rocks to step on. Izuku knows. He's the one who figured it out while Mirko and Tokage used their quirks to get over. He's probably sleeping, that lazy butt. Nah, he's doing push-ups in his room, trying to keep warm. He'll probably start doing sit-ups in between the written tests. Izuku stops short of the sand and leans against a rock. Mirko and Tokage watch the waves crash onto the beach, both dressed warmly. Uneven and overturned sand shows that they'd gone a few rounds without him. Izuku clears his throat. "Speak of the devil and he shall appear," he says, walking up to the beach. Miruko's ear twitches to him and Tokage detaches her head and intentionally rams it into his knee. "Who the F taught you to be so dramatic?" Mirko says, not bothering to turn around. "Look in the mirror. You'll see her ugly mug," Izuku says, kicking Tokage's head away as she laughs. "Good one." Tokage catches her head with one hand and rolls it down her arms and over her shoulders. She flicks it up with her other arm and it lands on her neck. "I remember the insults I came up with in elementary school too. It's impressive how much you've regressed since then," Izuku bites back. He joins them in looking out to sea. "Really, you're a freak of nature. Have you considered running away and joining the circus? Or maybe a traveling science exhibit?" Tokage smiles, all teeth. "Yeesh, right for the throat, huh? You kiss that mother with that foul mouth of yours?" "No, but I kiss yours. My mom's effing ugly." "Did I Alright, break it up you sheets," Mirko says. Izuku can hear the exasperation in her voice. "You'll talk sheet for hours and won't even start throwing punches until noon. And we don't exactly have time for that, do we?" "I've got a few hours to kill," Tokage says, crossing her arms. "I could probably skip school until March and do whatever. I got into UA, so that gives me the right to be a bum, right?" Mirko snorts. "Hell no. They'll probably revoke your acceptance letter. For all the sheet Shikitsu gets for being uptight, UA takes the cake for student discipline." "Meh." Tokage shrugs. "I've already taken my finals. They're just trying to cram for high school at this point, which I don't need. If she doesn't make it in after getting accepted, can I laugh at her?" Izuku slips his hands into his pockets. "Because that'd be really funny." Mirko raises an eyebrow. "You're asking permission?" "It's more of a warning," Izuku admits. Speaking of not getting into UA, Tokage cuts in. "Midoriya, you'd better FNG pass." "I will." "Calm down," Izuku says. "Not like I've been working hard for it all year or anything." "I know. But you better make it in because I am not going to go through school without someone who gets me." Izuku clutches his heart, a fake watery smile on his face. "Tokage, I love you too." "You fing bstrd," Tokage laughs. "Like you'd know if someone was into you even if they said it outright." "I'll have you know that I have very good examples of attraction in my life," Izuku says, hands on his hips. "You say that quite confidently for someone right by the woman who wants to get with his mom," Mirko observes. "I'm over that," Izuku declares. "She's married and would never cheat on my father. I don't see a ring on her finger. That's not even a thing here. They did the sake thing. And you haven't even seen my mother. And yet I still know that she doesn't wear a wedding ring. Your argument is invalid." Mirko has a type, Tokage says before Izuku can get a word in. "And that type is spelled A." Izuku slams his palm over her mouth. "Do not go there. Don't you effing dare." Tokage wiggles her eyebrows and then licks his hand. Izuku swears and wipes the spit off on her hair. "You beach!" Tokage yells, running her hands through her green locks. "I'm the beach." Izuku laughs. "You're the one who liked my hand like a dog. You shouldn't have put it there if you didn't want it to happen." "What kind of logic is that?" "The funny kind," Mirko snickers. "But really calm down. Kid, what time do you have to be at UA?" Izuku checks his phone. "In like an hour." Mirko nods and sets a calloused hand on his shoulder. "You better effing make it in." Izuku looks away, suddenly fascinated in the waves. This again? There's a million other hero schools in Japan. It's not a big deal. If you don't, you'll make me look bad in front of Tokage, Mirko says. That's a pretty good piece of motivation, coach. Izuku looks back at her, faking indifference. Anything else? Yeah. Mirko raises a fist and roughly noogies his hair. It's been a DMN treat watching you grow. Now go out there and strut your stuff. Izuku spends the last 5 minutes on the beach having his hair played with. He glares and pretends he doesn't like it even though he does, very much. Izuku planned on taking a train close to his house to get to UA, but that was before his impulsive run to the beach. Now he sits on a crowded train that will stop a block away from the school. It's convenient and easy, and for that reason it's absolutely packed. He's lucky enough to get an actual seat, but he's pressed right up against a small girl with brown hair and a beefy man in a suit. Then the train stops and the man gets off. Izuku thinks he might be in for some relief. Then Bakugo FNG Katsuki walks on. Green meets red as they lock eyes, and a silent power struggle forms. There's only 2 seats now that someone else has gotten off. One to Izuku's right and one to the brown-haired girl's left. Bakugo tilts his chin and sneers. Izuku sits up straight and PPS his head to the side. Bakugo's nose is crooked. Izuku smirks and rubs his knuckles with his thumb. Bakugo stiffens before confidently marching over. He glares at Izuku as he sits down next to the brown-haired girl. They both sit ramrod straight as the train starts to move, trying to glare at each other while looking forward. Izuku can feel his adrenaline kick in and his heart rate picks up. His body wants to move. It wants to shift and get ready to throw a punch. But he can't do that on a crowded train. The poor girl next to him looks like she wants to bolt from how tense he and Bakugo are around each other. He settles on taping his foot to the beat of a silent song. He'd much rather be pacing back and forth or doing some kind of exercise, but it'll have to do for now. On the other side of the girl, Bakugo rubs his hands together, and Izuku smells nitroglycerin. Not a lot, just enough for him to know that Bakugo is just as on edge as he is. That's a good thing. It means he sees him as a threat. Not wanting to be outdone, Izuku rests the backs of his palms on his legs. Slowly, he clenches his hands into fists and then relaxes them. It's a little barbaric to do this, really. Asserting strength and trying to get a potential enemy to back off is something that they show in nature documentaries. But Izuku can't bring himself to care. Not when it's Bakugo he's dealing with. When the train finally arrives at UA, the brown-haired girl practically runs out. Bakugo and Izuku remain seated, locked in some kind of staring contest. They stand at the same time and get off the train at the same time. Izuku doesn't want to turn his back to Bakugo or leave him in a blind spot, and the feeling is definitely mutual because they don't separate. They go through the same security checkpoint, wait in the same room, and follow the same guide to the testing area. They're in the same room for the written tests. Izuku can feel the anger radiating off if Bakugo when they find out. Izuku's pretty annoyed too. Now he has to watch his back while taking a really hard test. But somehow it goes by quickly. He and Bakugo are probably the top 2 scorers in the room with how easily they blaze through everything while the other people visibly struggle. When the written tests are over, there's lunch. Izuku eats alone, far away from Bakugo. Out of sight should mean out of mind. He just knows that he'll have a bout of rotten luck and run into the BSRD again. He's proven right when he has to sit next to him during the practical exam orientation. Present Mike puts on a good speech that no one responds to, and Izuku has to keep an eye on both him and the powder keg to his right. He catches a glimpse of Bakugo's exam sheet and sees that they're in the same area. Great. The day just keeps getting better. The bus ride to the exam ground is just like the train ride. Only now there's 30 people around them and it's possible to stand up. The extra space doesn't stop them from glaring. The bus ride is entirely silent and no one seems willing to break it. All eyes are focused on him and Bakugo like they're waiting for something to explode. In all fairness, they're partly right. Something is about to explode. When the bus stops, Izuku and Bakugo push their way to the front of the crowd. Both of them wordlessly stand just behind the starting line and look into the expanse of the fake city. There's a faint breeze from behind that carries the whispers of the people behind them. Up above, An intercom crackles to life. "Hello UA hero applicants," a voice Izuku recognizes says. "Today, you will all be battling robots. Try not to get hurt, okay? Otherwise I might have to come down there and pick you up." The way Midnight says that makes it seem like it's a good thing. A few people behind him chuckle nervously. Izuku pays it no mind. He's heard worse from Mirko and Tokichi. Before we begin, we need to have some ground rules. Rule 1. No attacking other students. Rule 2. Stop when the time is up. Rule 3. There are no other rules. Ready? Go! Everyone is caught off guard. They murmur and look around, trying to figure out if Midnight is kidding. But Izuku doesn't. He lunges to the side to avoid Bakugo's explosions and starts to sprint down the street in front of him. He turns a corner just as Midnight tells everyone else that it's okay to go. A few meters away from him, Izuku sees a blotch of green move. It turns around and he gets a look at its glowing red eyes. The two-pointer raises its stinger appendage and the barrel of a gun begins to glow. Izuku keeps charging. Right when the round is about to go off, he dives and rolls to the side. The pavement behind him cracks. He gets back up and closes the distance, reaching for his jacket pocket. There's a rather obscure law left over from the early days of Quirks. Not many people are aware that there were hate crimes so extensive and horrible in nature that people refused to leave their house out of fear of being attacked. The government didn't like that, so they legalized using quirks to defend oneself. But there was an uproar among the Quirkless, so the government gave them protection too. Izuku rolls under the robot, the device in his hand cracking with electricity. He slams the stun gun into the underbelly of the machine. He dashes away as the thing shorts out and collapses into a smoking heap. He looks at his tool. Not bad. He has to crank the power level up all the way and 10% of the batter is gone already, but it should get him a few points. But he can't stay still for long. He's on a time crunch. As he runs, Izuku keeps an ear out. He can pick up Bakugo's explosions and the sound of fighting. He has to stay away from other people and from low-value robots. So he runs until he hears loud mechanical whirring and hangs a left. A three-pointer and a one-pointer greet him. He goes for the one-pointer first, baiting out shots from both robots from a safe range before closing. He lets his stun gun rip and then uses the one-pointer as cover to avoid a shot from the bigger threat. Capitalizing on the reload time, Izuku charges again. Climbs on top of the three-pointer and fires his gun right into the neck of the thing before getting off. It doesn't die. Sheet. Izuku is forced to leave his gun as he avoids the machine. They try to charge at him, but some of the circuits must be fried because the thing can't walk straight. It shoots just fine, though, because he has to duck a couple of shots. He hears noise from behind. He risks a glance back. It's another robot. He dives out of the way of the shot from the three-pointer and then watches in disbelief as the blast hits the two-pointer. The smaller robot collapses. A light bulb shines over Izuku's head. A minute later, he's sprinting away from a horde of 10 robots. They can't fire well on the move, so he doesn't have to worry about dodging. He leads them all the way to the damaged three-pointer and stops between the two sides of dangerous machinery. Then he does something both very stupid and very brave. He plays dodgeball. Somehow, he doesn't suffer a direct hit. The robots all fire like mad, but they all hit each other, not the insane green-haired kid between them. The three-pointers wipe out the 1- and 2-point robots before they start to wear down each other. The sound of gunfire hitting solid steel rings in his ears beside the rushing of blood. Izuku's reflexes are pushed to their limit as he dives, rolls, ducks, and spins out of the way. Soon, only the crippled three-pointer remains, battle-damaged and stationary, but still able to fight. Izuku leaves to find more robots. He returns with more than before, but also to a new sight. Someone is trying to get close enough to the damaged three-pointer, but the thing is too accurate for them to close in, even when their skin is made of steel. Izuku calls out a warning as he charges. The sight of the other boy's shocked face burned into his memory as what feels like an army surrounds them. What in the hell? Duck! Izuku screams, tackling the kid and laying him into the ground. A volley of fire comes from behind, knocking out the three-pointer. Izuku rushes to grab his taser and the boy gets up, still gleaming with metal. How? A shot hits him in the back of the head, the one to the knee, one right to his butt, are alive. The boy screams in rage and spins to charge the robots. He tanks 5 more hits. Izuku watches and then looks at his taser. Well, since he's right there. The steel boy makes for an excellent distraction. Izuku uses up the rest of the battery in his taser to knock out a few more robots. Then, since he knows he needs more points, he picks up a hunk of metal from one of the dead ones and uses it to hack through a few more. The whole while the other boy screams, absorbing the damage and knocking a few out on his own. When the crowd is thinned out completely, Izuku drops his improvised weapon. The other boy saggers, kicking aside bits of dead robots and groaning in exhaustion. His shirt is utterly shredded and there's a few nasty-looking bruises on his chest. Even though it's a test, Izuku can't leave him here. He might get hurt. So he stands guard. A few more bots come by, but they're all one-pointers that fall easily. It's almost relaxing, really. Izuku's pretty sure he has enough points, but a few more wouldn't hurt. He starts to walk away from the boy, but then the ground shakes. Did you kiddos forget about the 0-pointer? Midnight's voice sounds through the city as the street Izuku is on starts to open up about 100 meters away from him. Well, if you did, here's a reminder. Don't bother with trying to kill this thing because unless you're All Might, it's impossible. Run and hide instead. Izuku's stomach drops as an absolute monstrosity rises from the earth. The machine is built for war with beady red eyes, guns, rocket launchers, and the fact that it's 10 FING stories tall. He has to run. There's no way he can survive if he doesn't. He starts to take off, but then the boy from earlier groans. Izuku looks back and sees that he's trying to crawl away. His body moves before he can think. The 0-pointer gradually gets closer to them as he runs. With every step the thing takes, the shaking of the earth grows stronger. Izuku's muscles scream in pain and his lungs beg him to stop. But he can't. There's a person on his shoulders, dead tired and helpless. He needs to get them out of here now. But he doesn't have to be happy about it. Can you run on your own? Nope. I'm totally gassed. Have you considered doing more cardio? Cardio kills gains. Oh my God, I hate you. No, you don't. You're saving me. I could drop you. But you won't. It would save me. But not me. The robot takes another step, so close the impact sends him flying into the air. He lands on his stomach, feels his ribs crack, and his passenger cries out in pain. Izuku gets back up. Got you, he says, looping the boy's arm around his shoulders. He doesn't have the strength or health to carry him anymore, that much he knows. Come on, let's go. I should have had more iron this morning, the boy says, much less cheerful. I had more juice, maybe I could have fought that thing. Don't flatter yourself, Izuku grunts. You got thrashed by the regular bots. That thing is huge. Hey. The boy casts a nervous glance over his shoulder. He swallows. Do you think that thing can kill us? Another step lands, even closer this time. Somehow they stay on their feet. Izuku tries to pick up the pace. No, he says, but he's not sure if himself. They can't. They'd be out of business if they did. But it's a small comfort when the thing's foot is right above their heads. It comes down in slow motion, and Izuku tackles the boy again. He covers his body with his own. Deep down he knows it won't do anything, but his instincts scream at him to help. He closes his eyes tight as the world darkens. Death never comes. And that's the end of the test. Please stay put and wait for medical attention if you need it. That, Izuku says, rolling off the other boy, who laughs. Here you. Drag me out of here if you can, my guy. It's a little scary being under a massive boot. They lay in the street together, looking up at the sky. That was insane, Izuku says. Yep. And so were you. What's your name, by the way? Mine's Tesutisu. Izuku blinks. Yeah, I know it's awful. But what's your name? Midoriya Izuku. The letter comes a week later. Izuku watches it alone in his room. You got 35 villain points, which is just barely not enough. The hologram of All Might doesn't seem to think that it's a sad thing. But there is one aspect of the test we don't advertise: rescue points. The hologram changes to show multiple images. There's a Zuku tackling Tessitisu so he doesn't get hit by gunfire. There's a Zuku running back and picking him up to carry away from the zero-pointer. And finally, there's Izuku protecting Tessitisu with his own body even when death is but certain. Yes, this is what we like to see. No hesitation, no doubt. Only grim determination to do what's right. How could we turn away such a noble person? As heroes ourselves, we can't. Therefore, 30 rescue points for Midoriya Izuku. Congratulations, young man, welcome to your hero academia. Izuku sits back in his chair. He tries not to cry. He cries a lot. And then, I sheet you not, this man says, duck, and tackles me like I'm not made of solid steel. The bar comes down and touches his chest. Yeah, that's Midoriya all right. You said he pulled something even cooler after that. Oh yeah, are you kidding? This kid. Wasn't he a man? It doesn't matter. Midoriya uses me as, like, bait, and starts beating the crap out of the robots with bits of their own bodies. The bar rises back up and then back down. So he let you get blasted to bits so he could rack up points. When you phrase it like that, it doesn't sound as badass. But yes. Back up, back down, and up again. That also sounds like Midoriya. What next? The zero-pointer showed it. Like, that thing was bigger than... I dunno, it was huge. It starts to chase us. Midoriya started to leave, but then he came back and carried me. You couldn't walk yourself? I was totally gassed. After what? 5 minutes of go time? Sounds like you need more cardio. That's what he said too. But cardio kills gains. No, it doesn't. Get off your lazy butt and run a 5K. No. Yes. Fine. I got your cardio right here. Tessitisu reaches into the pocket of his sweatpants and does a show of digging through it. He pulls his hand back out and raises his middle finger. Mass over endurance, beach. Just because Mito's mom said that doesn't make it universal. The bar comes back down. And doesn't go up because Izuku starts to laugh like mad. He feels the weight dig into his chest, but he can't find the strength to push it off. He's torn between asking for help, laughing, and trying to curse out Tokage for her joke. Take the weight, he stutters. Take it now. His two friends grab a side of the bar each and hoist it up to the rack. Izuku sits up and tries to calm down, but a few residual giggles remain. His chest feels a little bit bruised, so he lifts his tank top up to see the damage. A thick purple line runs through the middle of his chest. It's not bad. He looks up and sees that both Tessitisu and Tokage are looking at his chest as well. Cardio kills gains, he says with a straight face. Tessitisu snorts. Be sturdy. So does that mean it's cool to make jokes about your mom now? Tokage asks, watching Izuku wipe the sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. I mean, you did laugh at one. No, it's not, Izuku says, standing up and stretching his arms. In fact, you for doing that, I almost died. Don't be drama queen, Tokage says, rapping the plates on the bar with her knuckles. We got it off of you quickly enough. And going out lifting weights ain't so bad, Tessitisu adds. Granted, Tokage's little joke kinda makes it worse, but it's still cool. No, it's not. Especially when one of your friends is talking about Havich Izukidis. I can't even say it, it's so bad. Quit being a baby, dude, Tokage says with a laugh. It's not that big of a deal. It is when Mirko talks about it nonstop. She does that cause she knows it gets under your skin, Tokage says. Just ignored it and she'll stop. No, the F she won't. Izuku looks over to the entrance of the gym to see a pair of white ears and a long fur coat. Great, he mutters. Here we go again. But his frustration is fake. He has an ace up his sleeve. The hell are you FS doing up so late on a school night? Mirko asks, strutting up and roughly raking her hand through Izuku's curls. She does the same to Tokage but looks at Tessitisu like he's an alien. And who the hell is this? The meathead he saved in the entrance exam, Tokage says, cashing Tessitisu to scoff. But I resent that. Using the M word in the weight room is a sin. He crosses his arms and tries to pretend that he's not in awe of Mirko. "It's an honor to meet you," he says after a second. "You're really freaking awesome." Mirko grunts and gives him the once-over. "You need more cardio training." Tessitisu goes beet red and Tokage laughs. Mirko continues, "No, but seriously, why are you lifting the night before your first day? That's dumb as sheet." "Well, we're dumb as sheet," Tokage says, shooting Mirko the finger guns. "And it's fun. There ain't nothing better than pumping iron when you're a man of steel," Tessitisu continues. Mirko looks at Izuku. "What's your excuse? I know you're all buddy-buddy with the owner of this joint, but why the hell is it empty?" "Bart is having dinner with his daughters," Izuku explains, sitting back down on the bench. "He gave me the keys and said I could lift if I didn't pull anything. Naturally, I set a trap." Mirko tilts her head. "Trap?" "Yep," Izuku says, checking the time on his phone. "She'll be here in, right about now." "She?" Mirko asks, looking at Tokage and Tessitisu to see if they know anything. Both of them shrug. Izuku feels a smile creep onto his face. The door to the gym opens with a jingle, and Midoriya Inko steps inside. Izuku stands and jogs over. "Hi, Mom," he says, wrapping her up in a hug. He makes sure to turn so he's facing in towards the gym. He looks at Mirko. She's frozen. Slowly, her blank expression shifts into shock and disbelief. Izuku smirks. "Hello, sweetie," his mom says, pulling back from his hold. She takes a look around. "Is this where you've been training? It's a little rough." "Oh, don't worry about that." Izuku gently takes her by the arm and leads her further in. "Everyone here is great and safety is really important." "That's good to hear. I'd hate for you to get injured." She stops walking a few feet away from his friends and Izuku sits down on a bench. He looks at Mirko. "Your movie mouse?" How, ma'am," Mirko says, trying to give Izuku the stink eye while being polite to his mother. Her voice cracks a little, and Tokage and Tessitisu laugh at her. "It's, nice to meet you." "It's lovely to meet you as well," his mother says, extending a hand. Mirko accepts it and they shake. "Oh my, you're quite muscular. And your legs. I'm sure you're amazing at jumping." I am," Mirko says, red in the face, and Izuku's mom gently feels her forearm. I've been in the business for a while now. I have lots of experience lifting weights and fighting." "Really?" His mother drops Mirko's arm. "But you're so young. You must have lots of energy to spend if you've gotten that much action at such an early age." Mirko swallows, and Izuku sees a bead of sweat run down her neck. If only he had popcorn. "Why yeah, something like that." Tokage and Tessitisu join him. On the bench, they watch Mirko gradually go from barely being able to answer to being a babbling mess. "You're one tricky bastard," Izuku hears them say. He crosses his arms and watches Mirko fail to look his mother in the eye as she talks about having dinner together. Yep. By divine luck or human meddling, Izuku winds up in the same class as both Tokage and Tessitisu. They ride the train together, huddling in a corner and admiring their uniforms like they're made of gold. They speculate on what classes will be like and how good their classmates will be. According to Tokage, the recommendation students are all top-notch. And Tessitisu heard from a middle school friend that there was a girl with a plant quirk in their exam that racked up over 50 points just killing robots. And then there's Izuku, the quirkless wonder, though no one other than his friends and Bakugo know it. Still, he's proud of his 60 total points. He edged out Tessitisu, who got 56, and placed in the top 15. He did his research, and apparently no one quirkless has gotten into UA ever. Even in the business, support, and general departments. Tokage says he should be in a history textbook. Tessitisu says that would only mean one more thing for them to study in class. Izuku just doesn't want to be treated like some kind of zoo animal. The halls of U.High are pristine and clean. Izuku can see his reflection in the sheen of the floor. He feels a little nervous and it shows. He only has to worry about orientation, but his face is set hard. His friends also seem to sober up as they approach the doorway. Izuku lays a palm on the handle. He looks at his friends, who flank him. They nod. He opens the door and promptly swears something absolutely foul because Bakugo Ivanji Katsuki is sitting front and center. The universe hates him, he decides as he finds his seat, which is right behind Bakugo and far away from his friends because of course it is. There's even a blue-haired boy with glasses chewing Izuku's old bully out for whatever reason. It should make him feel happy. Bakugo getting what's coming to him is always great. But the blue-haired boy absolutely rubs him the wrong way. Songmi Private Academy? Oh, they definitely shoved a stick up your butt. How crude. UA students are expected to be polite and approachable. To belittle a fellow classmate goes against the core values of this institution. And you still haven't taken your feet off of that desk. It's got my fucking name on it, Bakugo says, leaning back with his hands on the back of his head. I can do whatever the hell I want. The blue-haired boy practically explodes. He begins to lecture Bakugo on having respect for his elders. Izuku tries to tune it out, but it's so loud. The two argue and trade petty insults, and Bakugo's head is almost touching his desk. Izuku hates it. An idea strikes. Cracking his neck, Izuku leans back in his seat. He lazily waves to Tokage and Tetsutsu as he pulls his legs up to his chest. Then he reads them on the back of Bakugo's chair, brushing the other boy's head with the heels of his shoes. Whoops, my bad. Just trying to get comfy. It doesn't make their yelling any less loud or annoying. But it's pretty entertaining to watch them both scream at him. He looks to his friends across the room and rolls his eyes. It only makes the yelling louder, but Tetsutsu cracks a smile and Tokage hides her laugh in her hand. A fist trade in his book. Pipe down, would you? Every teenager in the room, which is 20 now, the rest filed and freezes at the sound of an adult voice. 40-ish eyes, one guy has, like 8, and there's one dude who might have 4, it's hard to tell, scan the area. They find nothing. I'm down here. Izuku watches as what appears to be a homeless man unzips a sleeping bag and stands up. He looks around the room, unimpressed. Not one of you noticed me for a full 2 minutes. That's disgraceful. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a pouch of something. He downs it in one slurp. Now, my name is Aizawa Shota. You may call me Mr. Aizawa or simply Sir. I don't care which. Today for homeroom you'll be taking a quirk test. But what about orientation? A girl with distinctly frog-like features asks. The man shrugs. What about it? He reaches into his sleeping bag and pulls out a blue garment. Put these on and head outside. No more questions, we've wasted enough time already. Izuku hangs in the back of the crowd with his friends as Mr. Aizawa explains each of the tests. Bakugo, of course, gets to show off and wows everyone. His friends included. Tokage at least knows he was bullied and got into fights, but she doesn't know with whom. Tetsutsu doesn't know a thing, but he's bright enough to figure out how a quirkless kid would normally be treated. They might be able to piece together that he doesn't like Bakugo, but they won't be able to fully understand everything. Which means they think Bakugo is hot shit. He doesn't hold it against them. Bakugo is impressive in some regard. He just wishes everyone would treat the BSTRD like he deserved to be treated. But he's probably out of luck because... Awesome? Fun? You think my class is a joke? Mr. Aizawa glares at them harshly. To his right, Tokage mutters a quiet "oh shit." How about this for a laugh? The person who scores last gets expelled. Izuku does his best to hide his surprise. Yurei can't do that, right? The amount of pushback they'd get from outraged parents would be ridiculous if they did. But when Izuku looks his homeroom teacher in the eye, he sees only callous apathy. He licks his lips and prepares himself mentally. Hey! Tetsutsu nudges the back of his arm. You good? Not gonna lie, I'd be shitting my pants if I were you. Izuku keeps his eyes trained on Mr. Aizawa, who's having a few people line up for the 100-meter dash. If I sheet my pants, I'm probably disqualified, Izuku says calmly. And it'd be more weight. Puffies. Kids look like they haven't touched a dumbbell or ran more than a kilometer in their life, too. I think I'll be alright. The 100-meter dash is a cakewalk. Izuku balls is ahead of a boy with blonde hair and a black highlight, and completely trashes a girl who's completely invisible. The grip test is pretty bad. Izuku loses to Tessitisu, a girl with vines for hair, a boy with 8 arms, and a sentient shadow. But he has the second best flexibility in the class, right behind the invisible girl. His long jump is slightly above the average. Considering that half the people completely cleared the sand pit, Izuku thinks it's an accomplishment. Tessitisu ties his score by turning to steel mid-jump to gain more momentum. In sit-ups and side-to-side jumps, he places first. All of his core workouts and hours boxing paid off, and he smugly looks to Tokage, who does significantly worse in both. The ball throw after that is okay, he places 15th or so, but the last test is what has him excited. Distance running. Izuku dominates. Most of the people are suffering from some kind of quirk exhaustion by the time they have to run, and the ones that aren't are way less fit than him. Izuku takes third, behind the blue-haired boy who yelled at him and the girl with vines for hair. They all gather by the ball throw area when they're done. Aizawa stands below a big black screen with a remote in his hands. These are the results. Please do not gloat too hard. All of you could have done significantly better. First, Shiozaki Ibara. Second, Todoroki Shoto. Third, Bakugo Katsuki. Fourth, Tenya Ida. Fifth, Tokage Setsuna. 13th, Tessitisu. 20th, Midoriya Izuku. What? Izuku whispers. That's Midoriya, Mr. Aizawa says, ice cold, please head to the principal's office. You are expelled. Something inside of him cracks. His blood boils. No, I'm not. Pardon? Aizawa asks, his tone daring him to continue. Izuku doesn't back down. You heard me. I'm not expelled. My word here is law, Aizawa says, stepping forward. The class parts and Izuku is left to face the man alone. I set the rules, which say that the person in 20th place goes home. You are in 20th place. You are expelled. No. Not. Izuku stands tall and pushes his chin out. There's no way in hell I'm last. You fudged the score. Really? Aizawa crosses his arms. I don't think so. You're FNGD dash, Izuku says, ignoring the way the entire class gasps at his vulgarity. I didn't come in last and I'll prove it. Right here, right now. No, Aizawa says. Leave. Immediately. If you don't let me, I'll sue. Aizawa raises an eyebrow. On what charges? Discrimination, Izuku says. The one quirkless person in the class comes in last even when there's at least 2 people whose quirks offer nothing of use for the tests. Everyone saw me beat both the invisible girl and the electric guy in every event. Clearly you have a grudge against quirkless people and shouldn't be teaching. I'll win and you'll be fired. A will be forced to pay out a lot of money, and your hero license will likely be taken. Aizawa's lips curl into a smirk. Very well then, Midoriya Izuku. You may have your redo. Everyone who placed 15th or below, line up. Now. The people he's competing against are a varied lot. There's the invisible girl, a tiny boy with purple ball for hair, a guy with weird-looking elbows, the boy with the electricity quirk, and a girl with AUX cords dangling from her ears. They're all completely different, except for the way they all look at Izuku in fear and anger. But Izuku bears their hate easily. He glares back and puffs out his chest. He won't back down. He won't be pushed over. He will fight because he deserves to be here. The other 5 can eat it for all he cares. The second round of tests is so one-sided it's funny. Izuku thrashes everyone in the 100-meter, ball toss, grip strength, and sit-ups. He takes second in the seated toe touch, long jump, and side-to-side steps. By the time the distance run comes, the others are nearly crying. But Izuku lines up with a stony face and a hardened heart. The 10 minutes time they get to run isn't even needed. The others throw in the towel after half of it. But Izuku practically sprints the whole time, taking pleasure in the way every step pushes him forward and how his lungs burn in exhaustion. He runs 2.5 kilometers, a personal record. But victory and personal achievement prove bitter. You 5 go, Aizawa says. Izuku's second batch of competitors don't even have the strength to argue. If you can't use your quirks to outperform someone without one, you do not deserve to be here. Everyone avoids Izuku after that. Everyone except for his friends, who solemnly watch the crying trope of 5 leave the testing facility. How unheroic. Cheating BSTRD. 1 for 5 is an awful deal. You should have taken 1 for the team. Disgusting. How can you stand there like that? No, you crushed their hopes and dreams. Well, no one can be perfect, Izuku says, looking straight at Aizawa. The man has the audacity to look perfectly at ease. Izuku feels the urge to punch him in the throat. Even those of us who should be. Izuku wants to punch Aizawa, but he mostly wants to punch himself. All of his life he's been beaten down and spit on. He can count on one hand the amount of people who truly believe in him. How stupid was he to think that the makers of the very people who made him seem worthless, would be any different? That was effed up. I know. You should do something about it. I know. Are you going to tell your mom? No. You should. I know. Look man, you need to raise some hell about it. Because if you don't, someone else will suffer if it continues. People have already been punished just because a teacher felt like throwing their weight around. Get a lawyer. I know. Izuku sighs and leans forward in the train seat. Tokage and Tessudis continue to sit up straight. But, would people really side with me? My dad's a lawyer or something, but he can't represent us as one because of personal bias. He could represent me as a guardian, but people probably wouldn't take his arguments as seriously. Okay, but you were still discriminated against in the top heroic school in the country, Tessutisu says. That is a huge deal. There's no way you'd lose with such blatant evidence. No one gives a shit about quirkless people, Izuku mutters. You saw how the rest of the class reacted. They probably see me as a waste of a spot. And it's even worse since I forced a quarter of the roster out. They'll think I'll do the same to them in a heartbeat if I can. You were forced to fight for yourself, Tokage points out. You also didn't know he'd kick 5 people out. They're idiots for thinking that way, you shouldn't give a shit. I don't, Izuku says, though it's not convincing. He scowls at the floor and clenches his fists. I want to be liked. I want friends. But people will think of me as an aggressor now. I'll only have you 2 and have to deal with all sorts of shit from the rest of the class. You're making them sound like a pack of wild animals, Tessutisu says. That's basically what people are. All right, teenage angst, calm down. Tokage roughly nudges him on the shoulder. No one will give a shit about your high school years after you graduate. Just buckle down and get through them. We'll help you too, and if you want to raise hell, start by talking to the principal. In the meantime, you guys want to spar? Sure. Yeah, that's a good plan. Fight now, talk to Nedzu tomorrow after school. It was a good plan. Izuku fully committed to having words with U.A's eccentric principal. Until he walked into class the next morning and saw the 5 people that got expelled sitting at their desks looking like they saw death. What in the F dash? Tokage says, doing a double take. Which Izuku silently seconds because in whatever amount of nightmare scenarios he imagined last night, there wasn't one like this. Izuku clears his throat and everyone in the room turns to look at him. Almost everyone is at their desk, and their expressions all sour when their eyes land on him. The people who were expelled yesterday immediately look away and start to shift nervously in their seats. He licks his lips nervously. He should say something to cut the tension. Something memorable and sincere. Not an apology, but definitely a show of good faith. He only hates 2 people in this class. Everyone else seems okay except for how they yelled at him yesterday. But what to say? Izuku decides to open his mouth and say the first thing that comes to mind. Surely it can't be that bad. It'll at least be honest. We better not have a problem today. Sheet, F dash. That was the wrong thing. Tokage snorts behind him and he hears Tessutsu sek in a pained breath and fight the urge to laugh. Izuku fights to hold his even expression because if he breaks after saying something like that he'll look like an idiot. Kaki bsdd, Bakugo says. Izuku tries to ignore him. He winds up glaring at the boy instead, and they end up in a standoff. People cough to try to relieve the tension. The girl with AUX cords for earlobes touches the tips of the jacks together in a nervous tick. The boy with a living shadow remains perfectly still. The girl with vines for hair keeps an eye on Izuku, seemingly ready to break up a fight. The only unaffected person seems to be the boy with split-colored hair in the back. Are we done here? The tension vanishes in an instant. It's quickly replaced by a new kind of tension when Aizawa strolls in and looks all of them over one by one. Take your seats. No talking. Aizawa waits until everyone has settled in. No one bothers to say good morning. The man leans against the front wall and casually crosses his arms. You all have questions. One person may ask them for you. Raise your hands and I'll pick who. No one dares to. Until, after a moment of cold silence, a girl with pink skin holds her hand up. Ashido, Aizawa says with a nod. Go ahead. Just why? The girl asks. Why threaten us? Why did you let him, she points to Izu, do that to the others? We made it into UA. Aren't we all worthy of being here? No, Aizawa says simply. None of you are. Not yet. Right now you're a bunch of whiny, hormonal, carefree teenagers. UA trains heroes. You are not heroes. Until you are, you're not worthy of being here. That's a bit harsh, Ashido says. It was the first day. And your first day as a real hero wouldn't be? Aizawa asks. The world is an awful place. Millions of people die every day, and billions go through some kind of suffering at the same time. Should you graduate, you will have to fight against those awful things. It's best if you're prepared for that as early on as possible. But will we even graduate? Ashido looks at the people who were expelled. You kicked them out. I talked to some of the upperclassmen, and they actually went home. But they're here now. Why? I am a firm believer in second chances, Aizawa begins. As pathetic as their performances were yesterday, they still have some small amount of potential. They will have the opportunity to show it, just as you and the rest of the class will. If any of you show that you lack the potential to be great, however, you will be kicked out for real. And as for the expulsions, Aizawa's face screws up into an ugly smile. That was just a logical ruse to encourage you to work harder. But that's shameful, the blue-haired boy yells. He stands in his seat and wildly chops his arm up and down. Heroes don't lie. Teachers don't either. If you blatantly deceive us on the first day, how are we supposed to trust you? Aizawa shrugs. Don't. I really could care less. My job is to whip you into shape, not to be your friend. Most of the people seem to flinch at that. Probably because their teachers were actually pleasant in middle school. But Izuku's weren't. He supposes that's one thing he can thank Aldera for. Preparing him for jackass teachers. Izuku slouches in his chair and prepares for math class. If Aizawa wants to treat him unfairly because the world will do the same, that's fine. Izuku will just treat Aizawa the way he treats the world. With total disregard for its stupid opinions. I am here. Coming through the door like a normal person. Foundations of Heroics was always going to be an exciting class. Everyone has immediately decided to forget about the events of both today's and yesterday's homeroom in favor of chatting about it. Then All Might walked in and everything got 10 times more exciting. Can I have an autograph? I love your costume. So retro. Whoa, you're even more muscular in person. What are we doing in class today? All Might laughs, boisterous and loud. Settle down, young heroes. I will answer all of your questions in due time. But for now, let's prepare for today's lesson. Alakazam. All Might clicks a button on the remote in his hand. The walls of the classroom slide open in sections revealing small cubbies. To be a hero you must first look the part. Please grab the case with your number on it and change. I'll be waiting in the room down the hall. Izuku's costume isn't anything flashy. Before he met Mirko, he had a sketch in his notebook that, looking back, was completely embarrassing. He threw it out and redrew one that's much more suitable for him and his style. The material is a dark, forest green with black and gray highlights strategically placed to break up his form. It's practically skin-tight, that way the people he fights up close can't get a solid grip on him. The boots have traction pads on the bottom, along with retractable spikes for climbing buildings. His shins, knees, elbows, and forearms have metal braces meant to absorb damage. His torso is padded with some basic armor. Around his neck is a respirator and a pair of goggles are pushed into his hairline. He also has gadgets. Mostly smoke bombs and noisemakers, but there's a holster for his taser and a pair of HEFS. But the crowning jewel is the hood. When down, it sticks to the back of his costume. But when it's up, it protects his face and neck while also serving as an intimation factor. The fact that it has 2 strips of cloth that look exactly like rabbit ears has nothing to do with how great it is. Not at all. Yo, Midoriya. Tokage calls to him as he walks into the room. She waves, and Izuku wades through the crowd of people. What do you think, eh? She does a little flourish and licks the tip of her index finger. She touches it to her rear and makes a hissing sound. Pretty hot, right? You look awful in purple, Izuku says. Tokage scoffs. Excuse you? I'll have you know that purple has been my favorite color since I was 3. So you've had awful taste for much longer than I previously. Interesting. Tokage opens her mouth to retort, but Tetsurisu butts in. Hey guys. Sorry it took so long, this thing is kinda hard to put on. Tokage looks him over. Really? It's just a gray jumpsuit. You couldn't be gone with a simpler option. Are you sure you're not an idiot? Nope. Tetsurisu says shamelessly. But I don't really care how it looks or how easy it is to put on. It's just gotta tell people that I'm a hero who's in control. It does look pretty tough, Izuku compliments. Excuse you? Tokage exhales sharply and points to Tetsurisu before pointing to herself. You're saying that is better than this? Purple scales are out of fashion, you know, Tetsurisu says, hiding a chortle. Fu. Attention class. All Might says, holding up a hand. Today's lesson is about to begin. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a sheet of paper. Is that a script? Ahem. Outside these doors is a building. Inside the building is a false nuclear bomb due to explode in 5 minutes. 2 heroes have been dispatched to apprehend the villain duo guarding the bomb and to prevent it from exploding. Everyone will be placed on a team and given a role. The villains will have 10 minutes of prep time and everyone will be given capture tape. When the 10 minutes are up, the hero team is free to enter the building. Sounds good? Yes, sir, most of the class responds. Perfect. Now to draw lots. Please refrain from strategizing until you're planning PRD. Izuku ends up on a team with Tokage. Tetsurisu gets paired up with the Vine girl Shiozaki who took first place yesterday. Everyone seems more or less okay with their teams. Bakugo's the exception because of course he is. The blonde git glares at a short frog-like girl in such a way that Izuku can tell that the first words out of his mouth will be something akin to, "Don't hold me back." Now that we're all ready, All Might says, reaching each of his hands into a box each. One is red and the other is blue, and he shuffles whatever's inside of them around. He swiftly pulls out both hands at the same time and calls, "Here's our first match. Team 1 is the villains and Team 8 will be the heroes." Alright, Tokage encourages, giving the boy a hearty slap on the back. SCKS that you gotta be the villain, but it's still cool to go first. Go kick some butt. You got it, Tetsurisu says with a smile. Izuku accepts his fist bump and gives him a quick wish of good luck. The taller boy jogs over to join his teammate and his opponents by All Might, who hands him an earpiece. As the 2 teams head outside, one of the walls lights up. It displays security camera footage of the building and its surroundings. The bomb is on the first floor, but Tetsurisu quickly moves it to the top floor. Shiozaki casts out her vines to use as snares and stands on the roof, watching the hero team plan on the street below. Tetsurisu takes up positions on the ground floor, right in front of the door. He doesn't budge an inch when the buzzer sounds and Todoroki walks in with Hagakure by his side. The son of a beach has plan, Tokage says, watching as the Tetsurisu on screen starts to smile. I'm not surprised. He looked like a kid in a candy store when he was talking to Shiozaki. Izuku rests his hands on his hips, regretting that his costume doesn't have pockets. I'm thinking he's the distraction. Todoroki will probably try to overwhelm him with ice, but he'll just blast through it. Shiozaki will use that to sneak up behind them and wrap them up in vines. That's my guess as to why she's on the roof when the bomb's on the top floor. It could be for a different reason though, Tokage says. If I were Todoroki, I'd try to get to the roof and work down. It'd be a surprise for the villains, and Hagakure could even slip in from the bottom to work up at the same time. We'll just have to see, Izuku says, watching as Todoroki stops in front of Tetsutisu and stares him down. Hagakure is impossible to read, but she seems wary. She hides behind her teammate even when she could be sneaking around Tetsutisu. And she hasn't even bothered to ditch her globes and boots. What's taking them? Whoever spoke is cut off by Todoroki, who stomps on the ground and encases the whole room in ice. But it goes beyond that. The whole building slowly becomes a glacier. Windows shatter and are replaced by ice. Staircases become ramps. The roof practically turns into an igloo. Holy sheet, Izuku hears himself say. Holy sheet, Tokage agrees. He came in second in the recommendation exam, but I never expected him to be so extra. He is Endeavor's kid, right? Izuku asks. I thought I recognized the name. Yeah, but look at Tetsu. Izuku does and finds that his friend is still smiling. It's actually an even brighter smile than before, but there's a touch of cockiness and satisfaction to it. Izuku recalls Mirko describing a similar look as sheet eating. The entire class watches as Todoroki and Hagakure approach Tetsutisu. A close-up shot shows Todoroki saying something. Izuku's not sure what, but he knows it's cocky and self-indulgent. Tetsutisu keeps still, though, relaxing in his icy prison with shiny metal skin and a smile. He waits until Todoroki is just about to walk past him, and then he pounces. He breaks free from the ice and decks Todoroki across the face. It's a good punch, and his fist is solid steel. Todoroki goes down, crumpling into a heap. His mouth starts to bleed. Tetsutisu freezes. He looks from his fist to Todoroki's body. Izuku's not that good at reading lips, but even he can tell that he says, "Oh sheet." Please continue the match, All Might says into a microphone. Young Todoroki is still alive and will be cared for by our medical staff shortly. Tetsutisu looks up at the ceiling, nods, and then whirls around to look at Hagakure. The girl jumps, slips, and lands on her butt. She scampers away, but a mass of vines burst from the wall. Behind her and wrap her up. Shizuki descends the iced-over stairs using her hair. She quickly binds Todoroki as well, and All Might calls the match. Once everyone but Todoroki is back in the viewing room, they replay the match. Tetsutisu is given the MVP award, and All Might gives a few pointers to Hagakure, who's practically shaking in the corner. Everyone congratulates the winner, and All Might calls the next teams. When he does, Izuku swears. He gets a few odd looks, but he ignores them. Bakugo Katsuki and Ajuitsu versus Midoriya, Izuku and Tokage Setsuna. My life. Midoriya, I can change the match if you don't want to fight Bakugo and Ajui. Izuku feels his left eye twitch, and he stares down at his feet in frustration. All Might at least had the decency to take him aside for this, and Izuku kind of saw it coming. But it still hurts. No. You already told everyone the matchup. Changing it would be embarrassing. Pride is no excuse to put yourself at risk, All Might says, kneeling down in front of him. Izuku looks up and into his cobalt blue eyes. They seem sad and pitiful. Izuku tastes bile in the back of his throat. Are you calling me weak? Izuku says, schooling his expression in cold indifference as best he can. No. I saw your exam tape, it's quite impressive. That level of thinking and athleticism is amazing for a boy your age, and your actions during the test were heroic and pure. All Might sighs and looks away from him. But you're not ready to take explosions to the face. Oh, the things people don't know about Bakugo. It'd almost be funny if Izuku wasn't still afraid of loud noises. Almost. I'll have to eventually, Izuku says, pushing aside that dark bit of irony. It's better to start now than later. And I'm not afraid of Bakugo. That's good. Bravery is important for a hero. But so is knowing your battles. All Might stands and rests a heavy hand on Izuku's shoulder. I'll respect your decision for now. However, if at any time you feel like you're unsafe, say so. I'll be listening in. Respectfully, sir, Izuku says, because he really does respect All Might, at least during this conversation. I'm not going to use that out, even if it kills me. All Might chuckles. Plus ultra indeed. So, care to share what you're brooding about with the rest of the class? Izuku looks at Tokage, brow creased. What do you mean by brooding? I'm planning. Planning is not a synonym for resting beach face. Tokage leans up against the wall of the building. Over their earpieces, All Might lets them know that their 10-minute planning window has started. I don't have resting beach face, Izuku says, checking over the things on his belt. Not normally, no, but right now? Tokage stands right in front of him and froze. Her eyes look dead and her nose is scrunched like she smells something slightly rotten. You've got it bad. Why? All Might tried to get me to back down, Izuku says. Yeah, but you told him to F off, Tokage says. Shrugging. That's not what's getting to ya. So, Izuku says, trying to get around it. Tokage sighs and shakes her head. Look, all I'm saying is that you look like you wanna Bakugo's mom right in front of him before kicking him in the D with steel toe boots. Izuku snorts, fighting the smile that creeps onto his face. That's not in the blueprint, he says, laughing. I just want to kick his butt. I do too, but you want to crush him. What's the difference? You hate Bakugo, Tokage says. I want to know why. And you don't have to tell me, she rushes to reassure him. I just want to know if I should hate him too. Because you don't want to hurt people for no reason. Like, yeah, you made 5 people cry yesterday, but you didn't like that. I bet you have a good reason for hating Bakugo. Izuku stares at her for a moment. She's dead serious. Take out your earpiece, he says, reaching for his own. Alright, but... Izuku grabs her wrist and leans in to whisper in her ear. He's the guy I almost got expelled for kicking the butt of. A week before transferring schools. Izuku backs away and watches her do the math. Her expression darkens. Bakugo he. She trails off, waving a hand in a vague gesture. Yeah. Tokage nods, chewing the inside of her cheek. Let's fucking kill him. Izuku grins, wide and fierce. Here's the plan. It's stupid, cocky, and completely self-indulgent. But damn it if Izuku doesn't want it to work to AT. Once the clock hits 0 and they're told to start, he hitches a ride on one part of Tokage. She carries him all the way up to a window ledge and helps him perch above it. The spikes in his boots come in handy for it, as does the small coil of rope he has. Once she makes sure he's secure, Tokage leaves to scout. She leaves her mouth and puts most of her body somewhere safe and accessible. Her eyes, ears, and even her nose go on the hunt. The bomb's on the top floor. Azui is guarding it. The second and third floors are clear, but I smell something sweet on the fourth. Izuku nods and counts the number of windows below him. He starts to change the position of his rope. An ear floats up beside Tokage's mouth. Send an eye and a finger or something here. I want you to watch the widow under me, which is the third. He's probably working down. Signal me when you see him. Use your mouth to distract him or Azui if you can. Got it? And you're absolutely sure he'll ignore me to fight you once sheet starts to go down? Yeah, Izuku says with a wry smile. The beast wants revenge for his nose, I'd bet my quirk on it. Tokage's mouth chuckles. Smartest. Just give me a moment and I'll be in position. When do you want me to go for the bomb? If I scream bloody murder, end it. Izuku looks up at the upper floors. Azui is nimble and quick, and her tongue is a big threat. But she'll have trouble keeping all of your pieces away from the bomb. Try to always be in position to secure the win. Gotcha, Tokage says as one of her eyes and a foot float up from the ground. I'm gonna go now. I'll kick you when I see him. Good luck. Her mouth and ear move out to do their jobs and Izuku is left to stare at a singular eye. It blinks at him, which is a little creepy. He looks away and flexes his muscles to keep them from going stiff. He rests one hand on his taser. For a moment he thinks about whether or not trying to embarrass and shame Bakugo in a class setting is the right way to go. Live and let live, a saying he used to give a lot of credit to, moves through his mind. Izuku remembers all the times Bakugo attacked him in class and decides that it's a stupid saying. Tokige's foot kicks him, and Izuku picks up on the sound of boots hitting solid floor through the window. He takes a deep breath and unhooks the rope before grabbing it with both hands. He takes his spikes out of the wall and tucks his legs into his chest. Izuku pushes off of the wall and swings through the window. The glass shatters, spraying everywhere and cutting at his costume. The tough fabric holds, but a small piece nicks his cheek. Izuku ignores it and focuses on keeping hold of the rope. He swings, tensing his body as Bakugo spins to look at him. Red eyes widen in shock. Izuku drives his feet into Bakugo's gut, knocking him back into a wall. There's a split second where Izuku's vulnerable. Off balance and in danger of falling on the floor, he dives to the side, avoiding the explosion Bakugo lets off to try and create some distance between them. Izuku hops back up, fists raised and stance wide. He looks Bakugo in the eye, enjoying how he looks like he was just hit by a car. Cheap tricks like that won't help you this time, Bakugo spits. He holds his palms out and they start to crackle. We'll see about that. I've got a fair amount of them up my sleeve. Izuku sharply twists one of his legs. He doesn't move, but Bakugo tenses. Izuku smirks. Scared. In your FNG dreams. I hope you choke on this. Bakugo barely gets the chance to be confused before Izuku throws a smoke bomb at him. It goes off with a poof centimeters from his face, and there's a howl of rage. Izuku sprints down the hall, jumping down a set of stairs and diving down a hallway. He takes a second to let his heart rate slow down as Bakugo rushes to find him. It wasn't part of the original plan, but Izuku doesn't want to fight on shards of glass. "You fight me, you BC." Bakugo explodes into the hallway, flying through the air with an angry snarl. One hand is held back, propelling him forward, and the other is ready to swipe at him with a fistful of fire. Izuku almost laughs at him because, a right hook? How original! Izuku ducks under the swipe and grabs onto Bakugo's grenade gauntlet with both hands. Using all of his strength, he jerks Bakugo over him and into the floor. Winded, Bakugo tries to get away. But Izuku tackles him on the floor, flipping Bakugo over so he's on his belly and grabbing an arm. Izuku pulls as hard as he can, forcing Bakugo's arm to move across his chest. Izuku puts all of his body weight onto Bakugo's back, hoping to pin him long enough to get his capture tape out. But explosions rip into the air, loosening Izuku's hold and forcing him to get away before they start to hit him. They stand before each other, tense like coiled springs. Neither wants to make the first move and open himself up to a counter. Bakugo, at the very least, knows Izuku can dodge decently well and can sort of read his moves. Izuku, on the other hand, knows that if he rushes in without some kind of plan he'll get blown to bits. It wouldn't be a problem normally, he knows he's alright at thinking of something that could work on the fly, but he's blanking right now. For whatever reason, just looking at Bakugo makes it hard to think. His blood refuses to pump anything other than adrenaline through his veins, and his mind only has space for bitterness and anger. "This is taking too long," Bakugo says, warming his hands with a few explosions. Izuku's hand itches for his taser, but he resists. That's his ace in the hole. He can't use it randomly, or Bakugo might dodge and stop trying to get in close. By all means the fight could be over by now. Bakugo could knock Izuku out with a big hit. But he doesn't want that. He wants a brawl. He wants to prove that he's more skilled than Izuku. And the feeling is more than mutual. "Die, you shithead." He leads with his right side again, but that only tells Izuku that he's going for a feint. Izuku braces himself and lunges to grab Bakugo's left arm as it swings toward him. But then there's a burning pain in his side, and Izuku goes flying into the nearest wall. "You think you're so effing smart, huh?" Bakugo lets off another explosion, trying to get Izuku to flinch. But he holds strong, clutching his side as he stands up. "I'm smarter than you," Izuku says, reaching for one of his smoke bombs. "That's all that really matters." "That won't work twice." Bakugo roars, closing the distance before Izuku can throw another bomb. Or at least he thinks that's what he's doing. Instead of being caught off guard, however, Izuku sidesteps and grabs his taser. 25 volts of electricity course through Bakugo's body, his howl of pain drowning out the rapid clicking. Izuku shoves him away and holsters the taser. While Bakugo's off balance, he tackles him, grabbing the white capture tape and sticking it to one of his gauntlets. But Bakugo is panicked, and panicked people have a nasty habit of letting their quirks loose. His face takes a good hit, as do his legs. His chest and stomach are mostly alright, having been protected by his armor, but Izuku is forced back. Bakugo gets back up, holding both hands in front of him to stave off a charge. He spits onto the floor and glares. "I wasn't gonna do this," he says, steadying one arm with the other and hooking a finger around the fake pin of the grenade on his arm. But Izuku's stomach turns over, and he gets the feeling that the grenade isn't so fake. "But you FA set me off. This thing here is a massive storage tank. You know how my quirk works, right, Deku?" "I remember that it's dumb and overrated," Izuku says, trying to think of a plan. The way Bakugo smiles makes his hair stand on end, and he starts to fidget. "My costume's been collecting my sweat since I put the thing on." Bakugo starts to pull on the pin. "Imagine how big of a blast a half hour's worth of it will make." "Bakugo, stop." The voice of All Might blares through their earpieces. "You are forbidden from using that gauntlet. You could kill somebody." "Oh, he'll be alright if he dodges," Bakugo snickers. The pin comes loose and hits the scorched floor. The hole on top of the gauntlet begins to glow. Izuku tries to think of something. He does, but it's stupid and could get him killed. But then again, the blast might do him in anyway, so... In the tiny amount of time it takes for the explosion to build, Izuku closes the gap between him and Bakugo, uppercuts him as hard as he can, bats the gauntlet away, and pulls the pin on the other grenade. UFNGID. A roar, so loud that Izuku can only hear ringing after it first goes off, rips the building apart. The flash blinds him, and the heat singes his hair. And he's not even in the line of fire. There's a second blast a moment later, too, and Izuku feels the building list to the side. But somehow it keeps upright. Mentally, Izuku curses himself for being so stupid. He starts to cough as the smoke clears, rubbing his eyes and wincing. Slowly he opens them. The first thing he sees is Bakugo, laying in a heap. Both of his arms are twisted beyond belief, out of their sockets and oozing with blood. Izuku blinks as he looks at a small bit of white poking out of one of Bakugo's arms. He takes him a moment to realize that it's bone. "Young men." Izuku turns as All Might zips into existence behind him. "The building will hold for now, but let's not risk it." Izuku winces as All Might kneels beside Bakugo. "I'm sorry," he tries, unsure if he really means it. Bakugo intended to do much worse to him, didn't he? All Might shakes his head. "He escalated the fight, not you. You had every right to defend yourself, even if the result was..." He trails off, picking Bakugo up in his arms and cradling him like a baby. This should be a good lesson for him. "For now, I'll be taking you both to Recovery Girl." Young Tokage and young Azui both know how to get down using their quirks. "Come." "Yes, sir," Izuku says, slowly approaching All Might. Just climb on my back," All Might says. "The cape is sturdy enough to hold your weight." Izuku swallows, his mouth suddenly dry. "That's not what I wanted to ask. This is going to sound really bad, but it's important. Who won?" All Might stares at Izuku for a moment. He glances down at Bakugo before looking back up. His blue eyes glow with more intelligence than any poster or photo of him has ever managed to capture. "Well," he says, "you're still standing, are you not?" Izuku silently climbs onto All Might's back. He tries to ignore the way Bakugo is in pain while he sleeps the whole way to the medical wing. "You got Ife screwed, is what you're telling me." Izuku nods and looks around. Their section of the beach is still empty, but he can still hear people on other parts enjoying themselves, spending time away from home on a weeknight. "Yeah, pretty much," he says. "And, I'm pretty sure everyone in that class either hates my guts or is totally afraid of me." Mirko crosses her arms. "You didn't tell me this sooner, why?" "I wanted to try and sort it out myself," Izuku says. "But that kinda went out the window when those 5 were back in class this morning. Everything's fine now. Mostly." Mostly. Izuku shrugs. Shit kinda hit the fan in training today, but I'm fine. What the hell happened? Mirko asks, knowing that he's hiding something. My old bully happened, Izuku says. He's in my class and All Might had us fight in training. I won, but I put him in the nurse's office. Mirko quirks an eyebrow. How bad was it? Dislocated shoulders, a compound fracture, and both of his arms were broken in more than 6 palaces. I was there when he was healed, Izuku clarifies when Mirko looks at him strangely. Are you some kind of SDST? What? If anyone I know is a SDC, it's you. Izuku kicks at the sand in thought. It's just, he had these gauntlets that let off massive explosions, and he was going to shoot one at me. I kinda rushed in to redirect the blast, and? Mirko says, urging him on a little. I made the other one go off. His arms were in an awkward position and the recoil. Izuku flops his arms by his sides. You get the picture. Use acting madhouse is what I'm getting, Mirko says, spitting into the sand. The second day and they're already letting you guys kill each other. And they didn't even test the punk before giving him those support items. Not that I know of. That's borderline illegal. There's a loophole that lets emitters store up what they put out, but actually enhancing the power of a quirk without testing it and getting a certification is against the law. He can sweat nitroglycerin, Izuku says bitterly. The law's on his side there, just like how teachers are always on his side. You're right to be mad about it, but don't throw a FING tantrum. Mirko looks out to sea and shoves her hands in the pockets of her jacket. You're quirkless and therefore treated like shit by anyone with authority. If you cause too much of a ruckus, they'll get you back. But can't give him the opportunity to. You need to play by their rules and beat them at their own game. Remember what I told you before you knocked that beach out back in middle school? Give no shit, take no shit, Izuku says. Good. It's a good life lesson, but I'm gonna add one more. Never throw the first punch. I don't care if people are screaming slurs in your face or calling your mama aware, you sit tight. Keep calm. Don't FING swing. Bait them back if you can, but make sure everyone else can see that they went for it first. If you can't, don't say a DMN thing. They'll get mad, but if they're smart they'll walk off. Fighting outside of the ring is a last resort. Got it, Izuku says, hating the very fact that he understands why he has to live like that. I don't like it either, Mirko admits. Nobody would. But you don't have the clout to go around making noise yet. When you're older and more established you'll be able to bite back, but right now you gotta bob and weave. Let them make themselves look like idiots for trying to rile up a stone wall. Izuku hums and shifts in the sand. Alright, he says. I'll try. I don't exactly like UA so far, but my friends are there and it's UA. All Might School. And I don't think anywhere else would take on a quirkless kid. You're fine, Mirko says, roughly fluffing his hair. You just gotta be smart about your situation. Before people thought you were weak because you've got now power. But now they'll think you're bitter and hateful and therefore hateable. Keep calm and keep on. And don't lose that spunk either. It'd be a shame if you ironed out that chip on your shoulder. Izuku smirks. That metaphor doesn't make sense. I will F your mom out of spite. Sure. If you can look her in the eyes for more than half a second first, I say go for it. The train to school the next morning is quiet. Izuku touches up on some literature homework and listens to some music while Tokage shamelessly sleeps and Tetsu looks at his phone. They walk through the gates of U.A without incident and head for their homeroom. Class 1A is half full when they get there, and Izuku curses his luck because it's everyone who doesn't like him. Bakugo, that blue-haired guy with glasses Ida, he remembers the 5 people he got expelled, and Azui, who's not really on the list of people he feels strongly about one way or the other, but the way she stares at him and then looks at Bakugo with marked interest kind of gets on his nerves. Speaking of Bakugo, he's completely quiet. That's not normally a bad thing. He keeps to himself most of the time, but he's sitting up straight. His tie is actually done right. His pants don't sag. He's still glaring at everything in sight, but it feels less aggressive. But the difference is like that between a great white shark and a tiger shark. One's smaller, sure, but Izuku does not want to be in a pool with either one. So he sits on Tokage's desk, casually resting his feet on Tetsu's. Ida looks at him like he's a blight on modern society but doesn't say anything. Izuku tries not to feel smug. They might hate him, but he's at least respected a little. Respected but also feared. Izuku's good mood dips when he catches the eye of one of the girls who got expelled. Izuku thinks her name is Jira or something. He didn't watch her battle trial since it was when he was in the medical wing with Bakugo, but she seems alright. She just clearly doesn't think the same about him since she glares at him. Izuku, not being one to back down, holds her stare steadily. She breaks after a moment and continues to doodle random things in her notebook. Izuku's eyes wander a little and he finds that another person has been staring at him. At least he thinks they have. Hagakure is a little hard to read since she's invisible, but her body is angled towards him, and she sort of freezes when he looks at her. Izuku PPS his head to the side in a silent question. Instead of answering, Hagakure quickly looks in the opposite direction of him. Izuku sighs and drums his fingers on Tokage's desk. Perfect. Day 3 of class and he's already being treated like a bully. Or rather, how a bully should be treated. Bakugo's still sitting pretty in the corner, not dealing with the consequences of his actions because he's a lucky BSRD, while Izuku's being glared at and flinched away from like he's some kind of hostile animal. Izuku usually tries to hide his bitterness when he's not in the privacy of his own friend group, but he can't help but glare at Bakugo. Which gets him another dirty look from Ida because the universe and everyone he didn't befriend before school started hates him. It only gets worse when more people start to trickle in. Most of the class gathers around Bakugo's desk, asking if he's alright and how his treatment went. He tells them to F off of course, but no one cares. Izuku tries not to pop a vein as one of the guys laughs at Bakugo's insults like they're old buddies. Did they not see how Izuku was about to be murdered mid-spar? Did they forget about how Bakugo was about to bring the whole building down with a bloodthirsty smile on his face? They must have, because that's the only option that makes sense here. Izuku's used to the world's unfairness. He expected some pushback and hardship at UA. But he didn't expect his classmates to be total idiots. Does Principal Nedzu fast-track irrational fools into the hero program? It certainly looks like it. It's a relief when Aizawa walks in, as funny as that is to think. The man just seeks all the life out of the room with his tired eyes and uncaring slump. Izuku almost wants to thank him for it. Almost. In your seats? Aizawa says, focusing on each student individually for a moment. There's a PRD of dead, unmoving silences. Today, everyone rushes to move at once, shoving past each other in an attempt to sit down as fast as possible. But not Izuku. He slowly and deliberately walks to his desk behind Bakugo, maintaining eye contact with Aizawa the whole time. It's only when he gets to his seat that he looks away from Aizawa, instead looking Ida right in the eye as he sits down and puts his feet on his desk. Watching the other boy's soul leave his body adds years onto Izuku's life. All Might was impressed with your battles yesterday, Aizawa says. That means you're all taking this school very seriously, which is good. What isn't good is that I wasn't impressed. The entire room seems to take in a deep breath, ready for another round of expulsions. One person in the back coughs, and Aizawa's eyes flick over to them. They freeze like keeping perfectly still will make them a less desirable target. It must work because Aizawa looks away from them in favor of looking at the class as a whole. Todoroki, the man says, causing a boy with red and white hair to look up from the back of the room. You placed second in the recommendation exam. Your father is Endeavor, one of this school's most famed alumni. And yet you lost to Tetsu and Ibra. Why? The boy doesn't answer. Aizawa looks over his shoulder and then down at his wrist. Homeroom is only 45 minutes. I want to get through everyone. Hurry it up. I misjudged my opponents, Todoroki says, spitting the words out like they're poison. Aizawa arches an eyebrow. That's an understatement. You went into that fight expecting an easy win. You thought you could carry your team to victory. You froze that building with no care for your teammate, gloated in front of your enemy, and didn't even make sure he was completely incapacitated per the rules of the exercise. Consider that concussion you got a lesson in keeping your ego in check. Hagakure. The invisible girl flinches as Aizawa's eyes land on her. His expression does not soften at all. Your performance was also lacking, though given the actions of your teammate, it is slightly excusable. The next time you're working in a group, assert yourself. Make sure they listen. And don't stop fighting until it's over. Yue doesn't have time for people who give up. Tetsu Ibra, Aizawa says, not even pausing for Hagakure's meek. Yes, sir. Good work, you two. Your group was one of the few I was actually satisfied with. Quick thinking, solid planning, lots of communication. All of you should learn from them. Tokage, Aizawa says, looking at her cheeky pointed smile with tired distaste. You are a good fighter. You should have ended that match within the minute you found the bomb. But you didn't because you were going along with Midoriya's little grudge. Don't ever do that again. Tokage's smile drops and her eyes darken. Don't glare at me like that. Encouraging hostile training is grounds for expulsion. We do not tolerate hateful fighting here. You had a chance to learn and grow, but you wasted it. Midoriya. Izuku looks Aizawa in the eyes, already prepared for a verbal lashing. You have 1 week of cleaning duty. I don't care about you and Bakugo's obvious history. You keep that stuff out of training and out of my school, understand? Izuku nods just the smallest amount. You better, because if you use an exercise as an opportunity to get even, you're out. Fight Bakugo to the death in a Walmart parking lot at 2 a.m. for all I care. Just not in UA. Bakugo, Aizawa continues. Izuku shifts in his seat, curious as to how it'll play out. Bakugo seems to think that he knows what's about to happen since he sits up in his seat and tilts his head. Izuku just knows he's smiling cockily. You should be expelled. The F-. You heard me. Those gauntlets were given to you with the understanding that you knew what they could do. As a UA student, you're expected to be able to judge when an attack is too much. You put lives in danger with that stunt you pulled, and as such, your gauntlets are suspended. Deku tossed me and pulled the other pin. He broke my arms. Midoriya had no means of defense against that attack, Aizawa says coldly. You forced an animal into a corner and now you're whining that you got bit. You broke your own arms. You let your petty grudge get the better of you. You pulled that pin. You are responsible for your punishments. Stop crying and start acting like a hero because yesterday, you weren't one in the slightest. Bakugo keeps silent, but his hands start to smoke and shake. A low growl comes from the back of his throat. Izuku smirks, satisfied. Aizawa, however, isn't done. He turns to look at the entire class, a scowl etched into his face. Here's a little lesson for you all, because if you learned it the hard way, people would die. Buildings aren't invincible. They will come down if you aren't careful. All Might had to hold up one of them from yesterday after that explosion. If any other teacher were there instead of him, we would be 4 students short. The class holds their silence. Aizawa continues, you all have the power to hurt. You all have the power to kill. But you're here to learn how to save. As a hero school, UA will help you with that. But we can't teach you basic human decency and rational thought. What Bakugo did yesterday was disgusting in every sense of the word. He is not ready for this course. As such, he'll be suspended for 3 weeks. You can't if you do that. Yes, I can, Aizawa says calmly. I can do or say whatever I want so long as it's legal or approved by Nedzu. And I say that you're not part of the hero course anymore. Now get the F out of my classroom. Bakugo storms out in a full-on temper tantrum. The class watches him with mixed emotions. Izuku, Tokage, and Tetsu are satisfied. A few are mad. Most are in shock. Aizawa is different. Jiro. The rest of homeroom passes with Aizawa going over the battle trials. No one says a word other than him, and when he leaves, it stays silent. No one raises their hands for math, English, literature, history, or science. The room is quiet when they're on break. It's even silent on the way to lunch, and the chatter of the cafeteria feels alien because of it. Izuku gets his food and sits with his friends, still trying to unpack everything, but he doesn't get the chance to. A lunch tray slams down in front of him. The stew sloshes around in its bowl, and the rice jumps. Izuku looks upward to see empty space. Hagakure looks down at him. Or at least he thinks she does. It's hard to tell, but he gets the feeling that she's serious. Hang out with me, she says, full of conviction. Huh? Izuku asks, and she flinches. He feels bad. Sorry, You can sit here, Izuku says, trying to be as non-threatening as possible, which is hard because he's not used to being a threat in the first place. And I guess you can follow us around. But why? The collar of Hagakure's uniform shifts upward as she straightens her posture. I was really meek yesterday. I couldn't fight. I couldn't stick up for myself. I hate it. I won't want to be a doormat and, well, I'm quirkless. And not a doormat, Hagakure agrees. I just figured that if you can help me not be a beach anymore. Izuku laughs, loud and from his belly. He stands up and grabs Hagakure's hand in a shake. He smiles, bright and fierce like a predator. She flinches a little, but forces herself to keep strong. Izuku can't really tell, but he's pretty sure she's got a grin to match. Izuku pauses his pull-ups, tilting his head to the side so he can get a look at Hagakure, who's slouched over on a bench, nursing a large water bottle. It's hard to tell how tired she is exactly, but sweat glistens on her invisible skin, and the rise and fall of her chest is shaky as shown by her shirt. Izuku has some sympathy since he went through the same thing, but he was an idiot for not working out sooner, and Hagakure is also an idiot for the same reason. Pity won't help her get better, it didn't for him and hasn't for anyone else ever, encouragement will. SDST implies that I'm getting off to your struggling, Izuku says, pulling on the bar. He ignores the way his lats scream in pain. I'm not. I just want to help you. There are nicer ways for you to do it, though, Hagakure says. You don't want to be nice. She sighs and stands. Fair enough. What next? This is already way worse than the gymnastics I did back in middle and elementary school. Do you know how to fight? I passed the entrance exams. You also completely choked the battle trial. Izuku winces at the same time Hagakure does. Sorry, that was. No, you're right, she says. I want to get better, and you agreed to help me. It's just hard to realize how unprepared you are, Izuku says. Though to be fair, you're not too bad. You're pretty flexible and decently strong for your size. And you passed. Somehow. Hagakure laughs a little. I drew a face on a sheet of paper and used it to get the robots to hit each other. But halfway through I found out that the robots had off switches, so I just ran around hitting those until the buzzer. The robots had off switches? Izuku asks, feeling his blood start to heat up. You didn't find those? Nope, Izuku says, stiff as a board. Then how did you pass? Let's not focus on that right now, Izuku says, thinking of how hard he had to work when there were FING off switches. And how much he had to pay for the taser. You're pretty good at what you do, right? I guess you focused on stealth and getting into right spots. Yeah, also I can kinda control the amount of air I redact, so I've been practicing on blinding people. It's slowing going though, since my parents aren't exactly willing targets. We'll touch on that later, Izuku says, totally impressed and annoyed because Hagakure has a DMN good quirk and knows how to use it, but just calling it invisibility is a crime against Quirk classification. For now I'll show the basics and some of my moves. Make a fist. Izuku realizes his mistake the second he makes it. I have gloves? Hagakure says, gesturing to her gym bag. Or at least Izuku thinks she is. It's hard to tell because her top is sleeveless. Yeah, get them. It takes a moment, but she comes back wearing a pair of white cloth gloves. She curls her fingers up and rests her thumb on her index finger. Like this? No. Is it all right if I touch your arm? Sure. You want it to be like this, Izuku says, gently moving her thumb so it's no longer tucked inside of her curled fingers. Then he carefully aligns her wrist with the rest of her arm. He lets her hold the position and holds up a fist of his own to show. The thumb goes under, not in. If you have it tucked inside of your fingers, it might get crushed when you hit something. The last thing you want is a broken thumb. And you hit with your knuckles, always. If you make contact with your fingers, you could break them too. I don't think I could hit that hard, Hagakure says, taking a test jab. You'd be surprised, Izuku says, walking over to a punching bag and gesturing for her to follow. We're both pretty small, but we still have weight and muscles. We, and especially you, cuz, have to use what we've got more efficiently. I've broken noses and knocked people out before. How? Hagakure pokes Izuku's arm. Sure, you work out, but you're not buff. You're thinking that I only use my arms to punch. I don't. Watch. Izuku sinks down into a boxing stance and jabs at the punching bag. Since he only used his right arm to strike, it barely sways. Once he's sure Hagakure understands that it wasn't an impressive punch, Izuku shifts a little and punches the bag again. This time, it swings back a half-meter. Okay, explain, Hagakure demands. Did you intentionally pull the first one so the second would look better? I mean, yeah, but not like you're thinking. With the first one, I just swung my arm. On the second one, I put everything into it. Legs, back, hips, arms, and even my own body weight. I should actually probably wrap my wrists if I'm gonna keep hitting like that, Izuku says, shaking out his hand. So I have to lean into the punch? Kinda. Why don't you just watch me again, and they try to do what I do? Takes a while, but Hagakure gets it down by the time they have to leave. She's actually really good about keeping her cool. Izuku remembers feeling frustrated about not getting it and how much he struggled with keeping focused when he first started out. But Hagakure takes every little adjustment he has her make easily, even though she's worn out and has sore muscles. Once it's almost time for them to go, Izuku takes her on a quick run to cool down and heads with her to the train station. Think you want to keep going tomorrow? Izuku asks as they step out the door. Let's see how school goes and whether or not I can walk tomorrow morning, Hagakure says. But I do want to keep learning and working out. Take it at your own pace, Izuku advises. We're already in UA. You don't need to kill yourself with workouts. Tokichi, Tessisu, and I all lift and spar here every day after school. Just tag along with us whenever. Thanks, she says. I'll see you, oh God, in a few hours. We still have school. Yeah, Izuku says, smirking a little. Just sleep through homeroom and lunch. You'll be good. But that's so disrespectful. Aizawa doesn't respect us. Why should we respect him? Yeah, that's fair. Any hope of a normal, sane day of school is thrown out the window as soon as Izuku sees the mob of reporters in front of the U.A gates. This feels like it should be illegal, Tokichi says, standing on her toes to try and see over the crowd. Izuku watches a few cameras flash and a woman try to shove her microphone in the face of some poor Gen Ed student. They're impeding students. That's a crime, right? Not if they haven't been arrested yet, Tessutisu points out. It's UA, a school by heroes, for heroes. If what they were doing was illegal, they'd be in a cell by now. Or 20 cells. There's a lot of them. Yeah, I'm not dealing with that, Izuku says, slipping off his backpack and blazer. We're going to have to, Tokichi says. Unless you want to scale the wall. Izuku raises an eyebrow. Good idea, human stepladder. What? Tokichi asks. Behind her, Testisu starts to laugh. They make it over the wall with only a few close calls. Izuku boosts Testisu, who boosts Tokichi, who splits into a few parts for them to be hauled up on. Once they're all on top, Tokichi lets her parts fall, Testisu changes into steel and jumps off, and Izuku just kinda stands on top, awkwardly straddling the barbed wire. School security, apparently, is taken very seriously, but not serious enough to stop them from breaking in. If you do a flip, I'll give you 10,000 yen. Tokichi calls, cupping her hands around her mouth. You gotta stick the landing, though. I don't care what you do as long as it's badass. Tessutisu echoes. Izuku smiles, hovering a foot over the 10 or so meter drop. Yeah, totally. I'll jump, flip, and land on my feet. Do a flip. I'll give you 10 grand. Take a swan dive off a R. No. Izuku says, stepping back. Dude, careful. You'll fall. But it's already 2. Izuku's pants catch on the barbed wire, and as he tries to step, he feels his leg jolt to a stop. It sends him off balance and he spills over the edge. Time seems to slow, and he squeezes his eyes shut, bracing for the end, or pain, or something. But it never comes. Instead, a tight cord wraps around his torso, and his fall slows. He hits the ground but only with enough force to daze him. Izuku rolls and tries to stand, but he's bound up tight in something. He looks up and into the eyes of Aizawa, who's tired and utterly said, "Detention, 2 weeks. You and your friends. You're already tardy, so hurry it up." "Bullshit," Tokage mutters from somewhere. "Do you want it to be 3? Aizawa asks. "I don't have anything better to do," Tetsutisu says, shrugging. "But it's 4 weeks now. I'll be seeing you 3 for a month." Aizawa yanks on the cord and Izuku spills out of it like a newborn fawn. He stands and glares at the back of Aizawa as the man starts to walk away. "What were we supposed to do?" he asks. "Walk through that pile of people and get swarmed? That's 5 weeks now." "Bullshit," Tokage says more forcefully this time. 6. Say another word and it's suspension. Tokage mouths "Atfu" as Tessa helps Izuku up. "You good, man?" the other boy asks. "Fine," Izuku says, brushing off his pants and grimacing at the massive tear in his right pants leg. "Nothing's broken." "Yeah," Tetsutisu says, looking around at anything but Izuku. "What was the deal up there?" "I dunno. It was just weird." "It's nothing," Izuku says, squaring his shoulders and leaving no room for argument. "Let's just get to class. I don't want to get into even deeper trouble." They leave him be, which is nice. But Izuku catches the way they exchange glances in obvious preparation to confront him later, which isn't. But he doesn't want to focus on that right now or anything pertaining to his fall, he decides to call it. Izuku just wants to sweep it all under the rug and pretend it never happened. He gets his chance when he walks into class. "I want to be the rep." "Come on, I'd be great at it." "No, it should totally be me. I'm better and more popular." "Dude, what? It's the 4th day of school. No one's popular yet. And somehow I'm more well-liked than you. Mr. Aizawa, make me the class rep?" "Okay, what's going on?" Izuku asks from the doorway. Immediately, everyone clams up and watches him like he's about to explode. Izuku tries not to get mad or annoyed. "I'm not going to hurt any of you," he says, palm itching to slam into his face. "Like you could," one of the boys who has grapes for hair for some reason mutters. "Okay, I see where this is going to go," Izuku says. He points to the great boy. "I will kick your butt anytime, any day. That is not a threat, I'm just not going to deal with your heckling. Now could someone please tell me and them," he points to his friends, "what's going on? We're trying to figure out who the class representatives are." Hagakure speaks up. "Aizawa he just told us to figure it out and fell asleep." "Now carry on yelling." And they do. For whatever reason, they just go right back to screaming at each other, and Izuku sits down on top of Tokage's desk and watches. He nods to Hagakure when she looks his way, and smiles when he sees Ida's annoyed expression. "Hell, you're like some kind of vengeful god to them," Tokage says, leaning back in her seat. "I mean, he did hospitalize a guy," Tetsutisu says. "In self-defense." "Yeah, and that should be the end of it. But, people are dumb." Tetsutisu gets out his school supplies like he's about to take notes, even though the next class won't start for a half hour. They just focus on the fact that someone who's shown that he's not afraid to throw his weight around, gravely hurt a guy who was going slightly overboard in a spar. Slightly overboard is the understatement of the century, Izuku scoffs. Not when they were watching live in the classroom. Tetsutisu props his chin on one of his palms. They only saw Bakugo pull the pin, some smoke, and then Bakugo on the ground all effed up with you standing over him looking real angry. They don't know you well enough to get your deal, and for the time being they don't want to get to know you because you're scary. "Great," Izuku says. "I have to play the villain because I decided to fight back against the bullshit people have been throwing at me. Just a perfect Thursday. Could be worse," Tokage says. "You could be in mortal peril, sheet, that was badly timed. You could be drowning." "Thanks," Izuku says. "I could be drowning. Just peachy." "All right, this is enough." Ida slams his hand into his desk, making the whole class jump. "Let's just put it to a vote. That way we can get everything over and done with. Yeah, okay, glasses, but we barely know each other, the girl Izuku remembers as Jiro says. We'll only vote for ourselves. Then if someone gets more than one vote, they deserve to be the rep, Ida argues. Fair enough. Sure, I guess. Whatever. Perfect. Everyone gets some paper. In case you don't know names yet, refer to the seating chart on Mr. Aizawa's podium. Izuku votes for Ibra, mostly for the hell of it but also because she seems like she has her head screwed on right. He considers voting for Tokage or Tesatisu, but he really doesn't want to know what stuff they'd pull if elected. But other than that, he's fine with anyone being the rep, just as long as it's not. Midoriya Izuku, 5 votes, Ibra Shizaki, 3 votes. What the F dash? Izuku says along with a good chunk of the rest of the class. That's the final vote, Ida says, pushing up his glasses. His left eye twitches a little, which is a small bit of catharsis for an otherwise awful situation. I didn't even vote for myself. How did this happen? I voted for you. Tokch says shamelessly. Tesadisu nods. Me too. I did, Hagakure says quieter than the other two. Okay, Izuku says, sweeping his eyes over the room. Who else? No one speaks up. Great, perfect. Who wants it? Because I definitely don't. Ida's hand shoots towards the ceiling. I think that I. Never mind. Ida, as class rep I order you to sit down. That's not how it works. Could you all keep quiet for 10 minutes? Aizawa's voice shocks everyone into silence as the man rises out of his sleeping bag. He glares at each of them in turn, slurping down a packet of jelly. Better. Midoriya, you're the rep. Ibra, you're the vice rep. Both of you get up here and address the class. They meet at the podium and Izuku lets Ibra go first. She's proper enough to bow before speaking, and laces her fingers as she rests her hands against her navel. Hello. I am Ibra Shiozaki. Thank you to those who voted for me. I hope that I can get to know you all so that I may better represent and lead you in future events. Good, Aizawa says. Midoriya, go. I'm Midoriya, I hate each and every one of you that voted for me, and I'll be representing you in whatever this school thinks needs student representation for, Izuku says, going back and forth between looking at Ida and Aizawa to see who gets more annoyed. Good enough. Aizawa bends down and tucks his sleeping bag under his arm. You two have a meeting after school today for rep stuff. It's in here. Don't skip or you're expelled. All of you, sit down and don't make noise until Mike gets here. And for the love of all the things you hold dear, learn how to argue without waking me up. With that, Aizawa slinks out of the door, and everyone sits in cold silence. Eventually, real classes start. They're fine. Tense and unfun, but not unbearable. Izuku doesn't really think much about the day as it goes by. Even as the reporters he saw that morning break in and scare everyone to death, he remains calm and distant. Of course, he doesn't know that tomorrow will bring a rather rude awakening. Detention SCKS. Izuku spends a few hours mopping floors, scraping gum off of the undersides of desks, and grading papers from the general studies course. And when he's done paying his dues for his stunt in battle training, he has to serve the time for hopping over the wall by cleaning it with a toothbrush. And he's not even allowed to be with his friends. Aizawa just hands him a brush and a bucket of soapy water and tells him to get to work before walking off with Tokch and Tesatisu. It's annoying and repetitive beyond belief, but Izuku gradually starts to enjoy rage cleaning the wall. Maybe if he scrubs hard enough, the toothbrush will break and he'll get to go home early. The thought is enough to make him work harder, and even eventually breaks a sweat. Cleaning a wall with a toothbrush. It's almost funny, and it probably would be, if his uniform didn't feel like a furnace and sweat wasn't running down his back in droves. Eventually he takes the blazer, tie, and button-show shirt. He rolls his pants up to his mid-calves and untucks his undershirt. It helps a little, but it's still awful. And he stinks to high hell. Stupid Peebo, he mutters, dunking the brush back in the water and brining it up to a crack in the bricks. Stupid Aizawa. I could be lifting right now. Or running. Or sparring. What's so bad about hopping a wall, anyways? I've got my ID. I'm wearing the uniform. He just wanted to mess with me. Hello there. Izuku jumps, making a rather undignified squawk as he drops the toothbrush and kicks the water bucket over. Swearing, he rushes to pick it back up, but a skinny pair of hands beats him to it. My bad, my boy. Izuku looks up, and then looks even more up because the person speaking is over 2 meters tall. And they look like a skeleton. A skeleton with eyes and skin and hair, but still a skeleton. I shouldn't have startled you, the skeleton continues. Here, I think I have more water for the bucket. Sure, Izuku says, watching the skeleton reach into one of the pockets of his baggy suit. They pull out a water bottle, uncap it, and pour the contents into the bucket. Thanks. You're welcome. The skeleton bends down to pick up the toothbrush and hands it over. May I sit here? You'll get wet. The skeleton chuckles. I mean, near here. I'm quite tired and feel like resting for a moment. It's a free country. Perhaps, but it's nice to be polite. You can sit, Izuku says, gesturing to the wall. I'll just be here. Cleaning. Of course. The skeleton sits down against the wall and looks at Izuku with a curious yet fond expression. I don't think these have been properly cleaned since I was a young man attending, he reminisces. I can tell, Izuku says, scrubbing away at a rather stubborn spot of sludge on the wall. I'm surprised no one else has gotten this punishment in that time. They're absolutely filthy. Ah, so it is a punishment, the skeleton says, bemused. I did think it was weird for a teenager to stay after school cleaning a wall. May I ask what you got in trouble for? You know those reporters that broke in at lunch? Izuku asks. It's hard not to. Yeah, well, they were here this morning right in front of the gate. I didn't want to go through them, so me and my friends hopped the fence. My teacher saw us and now we'll be spending a month and a half cleaning the wall. A month and a half, you say? That's rather harsh, even for hopping the wall. It started out as 2 weeks, but we talked back. I see, the man says. That would do it. Perhaps you should learn to keep quiet? It's wrong for your voice to be suppressed, but teachers deserve some respect. Talking back isn't advisable. Aizawa hasn't done anything to earn any more respect than I'd give my shoes, Izuku says. And respectfully, sir, I've gone my whole life being told to sit down and shut up. I was a doormat all of elementary and middle school. I'm done being a weak-willed wimp, and if I have to scrub this wall for it, I'll gladly keep my dignity and self-worth and make this thing shine. The skeleton nods, understanding. There's other students along the wall, you said? Izuku's cut off by his ringtone. Hold on 1 second, he says, pulling the device out of his pocket and hitting accept. What's up? Where the F are you sheets? The voice of Mirko screams into his ear. I've been waiting for 10 FNG minutes at the beach and you're all no-shows. We all got detention over some bullshit, Izuku says. UA's a madhouse. I'm cleaning the wall for hopping over it and giving my teacher lip. That's bullshit. I'm glad someone agrees. What time will you be done? I dunno, in a few hours? Aizawa's a hard-ass. Text me when you're done. If you're too tired, we're not doing anything tonight. It's not that labor-intensive. It just esigus. I can fucking imagine. See you round. Yeah, give my ma a hug for me. F you. F you too. Another friend of yours? The skeleton asked, an amused smile on his face. My teacher, Izuku corrects. She's had quite the influence on you, the man observes. I wouldn't be worth a DMN without her, Izuku says. I see. Well, I best be going. Theon stands and waves to Izuku even though they're 2 meters apart. Perhaps I'll talk to your friends along the wall. If they're as interesting as you, I'll be plenty entertained today. Yeah, Izuku says. See you? Theon chuckles. Oh, we'll meet again. I'm sure of it. Izuku watches him leave, trying to figure out if he's really it if Tokage slipped something in his lunch. Shrugging, he returns to scrubbing the wall. The thing's not going to clean itself, and he wants to have some progress when Aizawa comes back. Maybe that way he can go home and actually do something productive. He snorts. Yeah. With his luck, he'll be here forever. The next day brings more awkward tension in homeroom. Izuku doesn't even bother with trying to hide the fact that he doesn't care and sits down on Toki's desk like usual. They talk about how much of a pain it was to scrub the wall, and about sparing the previous night. Tetsutisu and Hagakure join them, and they swap ideas for new moves to try out. Everything's fine. Until Aizawa walks in. "We're going on a field trip," he says, pointing to the door. "Go to the lockers and put your gear on. Midoriya, Ibra, make sure everyone's outside by the bus. I'm not doing a head count." With a sarcastic salute, Izuku leads the walk out of the room, noting how everyone but his friends keeps a few paces away at all times. He's the first one into the boys' locker room and the first to change, but he waits. The last thing he wears is for someone to goof off and make him look bad for failing to do his duty, or whatever Aizawa can come up with on the spot. He talks with Tetsutisu as everyone changes, and keeps a tally of who walks out. Eventually it's just him, Tetsutisu, and the great boy who insulted him yesterday. Izuku looks at him and arches an eyebrow. The boy silently hurries out. Ibra is already outside with the rest of the class, and upon seeing him she has everyone load up into the bus. Which is self-driving because of course it is. Yude can afford self-driving vehicles but can't make sure its teachers aren't jackasses. It makes total sense. He's joking of course, but he's still in a sour mood as he sits down next to Tetsutisu on the bus. People start to chat around him, but it ends the moment Aizawa steps on. The man rakes his eyes over the rows of seats and sits in the front. His head droops down and he falls asleep. Tentatively, people begin to speak again. Izuku, however, keeps quiet. When they get to their destination, Izuku is the last one off the bus. He, like everyone else, has a flash of confusion upon seeing the golden letters on the massive structure before him. "No, it's not Universal Studios Japan," Aizawa says, looking like he wants a few liters of coffee. "It's the unforeseen simulation joint." Unforeseen what? Izuku finds himself asking. Unforeseen villains? Unforeseen movie sequels? Unforeseen idiots? Unforeseen disasters? Aizawa glares at Izuku, who keeps a straight face. He's got 6 weeks of detention. What's one more? "We're dealing with natural disasters today. You'd have gotten the information inside if you hadn't been fooling around out here. You're all testing my patience as it is, so hurry it up and get in there. The doors can't open fast enough." The whole class practically pushes each other aside to try and get in first, to the point where it's probably a safety hazard. Once the last person steps foot inside the building, Izuku lets himself get a good look at the USJ. It's huge. Like, the size of his district, huge. There are mini domes inside of the big dome, and even those can fit 20 or so of his apartment building in them. And it's obvious that it's all made for rescue training. Shipwrecks, an avalanche, collapsed buildings and landslides are just the start of what he can see. The whole class could spend days here and not see everything. Attention everyone! A person in a puffy space suit walks up the stairs leading to the entrance, waving their hands high above their helmet. "Welcome to the unforeseeness." "They already know, 13, Aizawa says, walking through the crowd of students to speak with the other hero. He casts a quick glance back before looking forwards again. "Where the hell is All Might? He's supposed to be here." About that." 13 shifts from foot to foot, their helmet angled down. They hold up 4 fingers and slowly raise and lower their 5th. "He had a busy morning. He called to tell me that he really wanted to come, but wouldn't be able to be here the whole time if he did. He'd rather use his time to see the 3rd year's combat trials." Aizawa sighs. Of course, that's just like him. "All right, you lot, get ready for a lot of listening." 13. "Of course." The other hero steps in front of the class and spreads their arms wide. "Hello. I am the space hero 13. I am a part-time teacher here at UA, and I specialize in rescue. I designed and built this place so that young heroes would have a place to practice their rescue tactics. Could anyone tell me what most heroes are unprepared for in the field?" "Well, it's gotta be rescues, right?" one of the girls says. Izuku can't remember her name, but she has pink skin. "We're kinda here to learn about them, so..." "You are correct." 13 praises. "Yes, most heroes are villain response specialists, and when a disaster happens, or if a rescue is needed, they often find themselves unprepared for the situation. And as a result, people can often get hurt. It's an unfun fact that your quirks can be used to harm, 13 continues. You saw that in All Might's battle training. How easily you can gravely injure or even kill. But quirks are tools. In Aizawa's exam, you saw how your powers can be used in all sorts of situations. And today, you'll learn how to use your quirks as tools for saving a life. Please pay careful attention and think about what it means to be able to use your power for good. Are we ready? Oh yeah. Bring it. Nice speech, teach. When can we? No cheering, Aizawa interjects. We're on a schedule, I don't want to get behind. Let's hurry up and Izuku follows the man's line of sight down the steps and into the central courtyard below. A tiny purple speck sticks out against the tan of the ground. It starts to grow larger and larger. After a moment, a figure steps out of it. More follow, and several other purple portals appear. Because that's what they are. Portals. The USJ is being broken into, and from the way Aizawa grimly pushes a pair of goggles over his eyes and grabs the scarf around his neck, the people below are villains. 13. Protect the students, Aizawa orders. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a phone. Everyone try to call for help and run to the exit. The bus should start itself. I'll hold them off. There's at least 50 down there, Izuku remarks. Unless you secretly have a stupid powerful quirk, you're not gonna last against them. Aizawa turns to him and smirks. His eyes glow red for just a moment. No UA graduate is a one-trick pony. But as Eraserhead leaps down the stairs and binds 3 villains at once, Izuku can't help but think that he's still right. Come on, let's go, Tokage says, pulling on his shoulder. I don't want to get caught up here, and I don't want you to either. Beside her, Tessutisu and Hagakure agree. Izuku can't bring himself to tear his eyes from the hero fighting below. There's at least 200 of them down there, Izuku says. Eraserhead is an ambush predator. He waits for the right moment, cancels the quirks of his prey, and then attacks while they're confused. He's going loose down there. He's a pro, Tessa says. Izuku shakes his head. It doesn't matter. 1 on hundreds is a death sentence. Yeah, well, you hate him, Tokage says, pulling harder on Izuku's arm. And he chose to go down there. So let's get the F out while we still have. Greetings, we are the League of Villains. Izuku finally brings himself to tear his eyes away from Aizawa and turns around. A smoky mass of purple and black surrounds the rest of the class, blocking the exit and skinning the light from the air. Unfortunately for you, your exit is not permitted at this time. Please wait until All Might arrives. Then you may leave or stay to watch his demise. Run, Izuku says. What? Effing you run. Tokage agrees, starting to sprint away from both the stairs and the exit. Izuku and the rest follow, unwilling to look back. It's a mistake that will cost them dearly. Stragglers. You are UA's golden eggs, after all. The smoke appears in front of them, suffocating and dangerous. It doesn't surprise me that some of you would be runners. The smoke envelopes Izuku, and he desperately cries out for his friends. He feels the warmth of someone's fingers brush against his, but it's gone in an instant. Replacing it is nothing but cold. He travels through the portal for what feels like minutes, struggling to breathe. When he falls out of it, the warmth and light surprise him. He falls for a few meters and hits the ground hard. He feels a sharp pain in his head, and his vision goes spotty. He lays there, unmoving. The grass tickles his face and neck, and the artificial lights warm his hair. Eventually, there's a few more screams, and other people land around him. I'm alive. Shut up, of course you are. Lay off, we coulda died. Whatever. Are you two all right? Yeah. I think my arm's broken. That's a bruise. Oh, thank God. Izuku groans and tries to get up. He fails and falls right back in his face. What was that? A villain. Where? Shut up, a voice says, getting closer. It could be another student there. Izuku hears a few sets of footsteps, and soon someone's trying to flip him over. He's alive, someone says, making it sound like a bad thing. Izuku flutters his eyes open and is blinded by the light. He quickly adjusts, and when he does he nearly screams in anger. My life. Yeah, Jiro says, trading looks with Kaminari, Siro, and the grape-haired boy. We're not so happy about it either.